Okay.
Do you have an important appointment with P. Mars on Chatterbait?
Oh no, this is live already.
Oh no. I stand by it. It's true and you should say it.
Oh no. Look, we can't hate him for being gay or bisexual.
We don't. We hate him for being the combination of same-sex attracted shaming.
So I've never heard him actually do that. Does he actually do that?
Yeah, he calls people degenerates, and he's also like super racist. But I guess that's not real. That's
I've
not
heard
like
the racist
technically
thing.
related. But yeah, he like calls people degenerates for their
Does
their
he call
practices.
himself a degenerate? I wonder if that's true.
Nope.
Actually, that brings up a good point. He has accused a lot of people of being degenerate. I'm curious to know if we can track back. Does he record his debates anywhere? If we can track back him referring to gay people as degenerate?
I'd be curious too.
Because if so,
We got to be careful. Wait. We got to be careful saying that word. TikTok really doesn't like that word.
Oh yeah, they really don't. Such a weird word for them to really get caught up and like clutch their pearls over.
Yeah, I agree. Well, because you can say lesbian, and that's no problem.
Right. Well, listen, we got the live stream open now, guys. Welcome in. And
Great.
as per usual, there's a link on the screen to join the discussion. If you want to join in debate, just go to tinyurl.com/you-a-guest. We can't take guests over TikTok because of the way our audio visual setup is. But we'd love to talk to you about whatever God you believe in, preferably a God that's not, everything or nothing.
I've heard the former. I've never heard the latter.
My understanding is that the God that is timeless, spaceless, and immaterial, that is a nothing God. But some people give properties to the God, and then you can actually debate what the God is. But like the timeless, spaceless, immaterial God that has no properties necessarily just sounds like something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case, right? Like that is, I would certainly describe something with that property set as non-existent. Yeah.
So we announced maybe only 30 seconds ago that the way to get in on the stream to be a guest is the link on the screen, and we've now got a theist already trying to get in on TikTok. My friend theist Rich Poor 84. Yeah, we cannot take guests over TikTok. You have to use the link on the screen. We're more than happy to talk to you, but you're already giving me doubts that you're capable of engaging in good dialogue if you weren't listening to our announcement 30 seconds ago or reading the screen.
You know, if those theists could read, they'd be very upset right now.
I know, right?
I feel like if they could read, then they just wouldn't be theists.
We'll see if Rich Poor is able to figure out how to type in the link on the screen. But supposedly they've got proof. Says, I requested, he exists, and it's been proven. I can't wait to see the proof. And I especially can't wait to see why you called it a he. I assume it's some sort of Abrahamic God. It is weird how insistent like Christians are on this fact that, or this idea that God is a he. They're very serious about it.
Yeah, they take his pronouns quite seriously, yeah. And I think I'd argue that God uses neopronouns in that he has like capital H every single time. It's not like the standard like he, him. I just feel like I feel like this falls into the category of neopronouns.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Unless you're German speaking, in which case you always capitalize nouns.
Nouns or pronouns?
I think pronouns are a type of noun, right?
Yeah, I
yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Well, wait, I thought pronouns are just their own part of speech.
I guess the pronouns.
They're-
Like
were a
they stand
subcategory.
in. They stand in for a noun, of course.
Yeah.
but-
It's like an indirect noun. Now I got questions. Anyways, Issa, we see you in the guest queue on TikTok, and we can't take any guests over TikTok. There's a link on the screen to join the conversation, though. It's tinyurl.com/UA guest. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to give us your email. None of that stuff. All you got to do is type the link into your browser on your phone or your computer or anything that you have, and you'll get pulled into the conversation. But we're not able to take guests over TikTok. What are the odds that TikTok actually just gets banned after the 75-day waiting period?
Seems unlikely.
I don't know if
Well,
the current administration wants it banned.
I don't think that they do, but also I don't know if they'll be able to make a deal with China considering the trade war.
Oh, definitely
Yeah.
not. Right.
Definitely
That's
not.
like super not going to happen.
But
I
then
don't
how
know.
does it,
Like
how does it stay unbanned?
That's a good point. I think it probably just depends what our relationship with China is like. But at the same time, it would just be massively unpopular. But at the same time, it seems like they haven't shied away from doing things that are massively unpopular. So.
Right. Well, my understanding is that it already is banned. They're just choosing to not enforce the guidelines. So, like, theoretically, they can just do that indefinitely until the next president comes in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. No, yeah. I think that makes sense at the point in time when they're not, like, it's not like there's some law that's in effect. It's just like their good graces.
Seabar, thanks for the hats. What are the odds that Trump actually runs for a third term? I don't think he's crazy enough to attempt it.
I don't know. I mean, we're only like 100 days in, and it's been like insane. So I don't know. I think it's impossible
really
to say. Yeah, I don't know. We're it's like the worst possible like. It's like the worst like capitalist behavior where you just like do horrible stuff in the short term, or to get like short term profit. That's gonna like just like completely decimate you in the long term.
Yeah, I'm curious because in order for him to run for a third term, he's got to run through the RNC. So, I mean, the RNC could
No, he
theoretically just say, well, he could do a third party, but third parties traditionally don't perform all that well.
What if he just didn't do elections?
Oh, you mean he could
Well-
just turn himself into a dictator? Yeah, that is
Yeah.
possible.
Well, I mean, I think that even if he ran third party, he would still almost certainly all of the Republicans or all the people that voted for him in this term and weren't turned away by the terrible policy would still vote for him. It wouldn't be like, oh, well, he's third party, so I'm not going to vote. No, they would just vote for him.
Maybe. The thing is, I actually know quite a few people who just won't vote for a Democrat. But so like the Trump for them was like the worst of the evils. They would probably vote for a different Republican if it was between a Republican and Trump.
Well, what if it was between a Republican, Trump, and a Democrat? Who would they vote for?
A Republican.
But what if Trump has a better shot of winning than the Republican in their eyes?
Oh, I don't think that would persuade them too much. I think right now in history, I think most people will realize that a third term is inherently a difficult thing to sell. So I don't know.
Yeah, they need to lay the groundwork for it. I think the goal, the ideal, is that they like erode the justice system such that they can just walk right over it post-election.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what the Third Reich did, right? They went into the government, and then they overhauled it and made it so that nobody could remove them from power without force. And then once you've done that, you can do anything you want to. So, I mean, that seems to be the playbook. They're trying to get themselves into a position where they don't have to answer to anybody, and they have complete control. And if that's the case, all hell's going to break loose.
Yeah, seems to be. Yeah, I think that we're I don't know. This isn't a hot take, but we're on track for bad things.
Yeah. Brandon, I see you in the TikTok guest queue. Unfortunately, we can't take guests over TikTok. But if the Lord enabled you to read, you could see that there's a link on the screen. It's tinyurl.com/UA guest. You could become a guest by going to that link. Also, if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, you can also join. There's a link in the description of the video. You can just click on the link and you can join that way. You don't even have to copy and paste it into the browser. But we'd love to talk to anyone about their deistic concepts, theistic concepts, Abrahamic
Do
gods,
you really want to
anything?
talk to deists?
Well, I mean, I'm not looking forward to it.
No, I don't know. I have a sick new argument. This argument eats. It's
Sure.
Is
it's
this the divine calendar?
Yeah. I think most people, well, the divine calendar is like the best argument that they could possibly make. I don't think most people are going to make that. I think they're probably just going to get confused and struggle.
I've been don't make fun of me. I've been working through a self-referential paradox for the statement "God grounds all truths," and I think I have one. But I'll talk to you guys about it later.
Sure.
Or maybe I'll need to run it if somebody wants to make that claim, just as a rebuttal to precepts. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Well, let's grab our first guest. We've got coming in Penny. We'll get Penny into the conversation. Money Penny 44 is what I'm seeing. How you doing, Money?
Hi, is this working? I'm not sure how this works.
It seems to be working,
Hear
yeah.
you.
Okay, lovely. This is a fantastically timely and topical space you have. I am a former BBC journalist, British obviously, and over the last few weeks I started studying the change in electromagnetics and things that were happening at a solar level, which you're probably aware of have been pretty volatile. And through that exploration, I came across a lot of other information. I'll cut short for now. And I ran headline on various social media platforms saying God is an alien. We know God is a non-human life form anyway, since nobody has seen God ever walking around. But I am of the strong opinion now, backed up by the science of what's called sonoluminescence and a lot of passages from the Bible, and particularly what happened with the Vatican in the last few days. I am even more strongly of the opinion that God is an energy, a power, an energy that, in my opinion, originates from the same non-human background as what we like to call aliens.
Sure. What?
So, just a quick question. You said former BBC reporter?
Yes. Oh, years ago. Yeah, not now.
Oh, okay. So and the headline that you wrote recently, that wasn't in BBC.
Dr.
No,
Blitz, you're super
no.
quiet.
No,
Maybe I'm
no.
tripping, but I feel like Blitz is like quiet as heck.
A little bit.
Hold on, maybe I can.
I can crank them up.
Okay, okay. I was just wondering if those two things were related. Yeah, I think that, being blunt, I think that what you said is basically incoherent. But I'd love to hear more if you have more.
Yeah. Would you like to? I
well,
can certainly explain all the background because it does sound.
One clarifying question: when you say
Go for it.
that God is an energy, what do you think energy is?
So I'm talking about energy. Generally speaking, first of all, we have to acknowledge plasma as the fourth state of matter scientifically. So we have solids, we have liquids, we have gases, and we have something called plasma, the fourth state of matter, where the molecules within it at a subatomic level are moving so rapidly that we have this fourth state of matter that's created. It's used in atomic fusion processes. It's used in the creation of energy. Because effectively what it is a state of matter which contains a supreme amount of energy.
When you say create energy, you mean like electricity?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely electricity. Bearing in mind that
like used in
every
power
piece of
generation.
light is electricity, light is energy. Light is energy itself. It is electromagnetic waves. So light and sound waves together have their own powerful energy. When you combine light energy, light waves, with sound waves, you create something called sonoluminescence. Do you want to look that up? It very simply is pulling together the right light frequencies and sound frequencies, and together, let's say you had a bubble of water, a gaseous bubble of water. The reaction it makes is a massive implosion of that bubble, which gives off probably enough energy to heat my home in the UK for 12 months. It is
Where does that energy
powerful.
Where does that energy come from? That comes from the sonoluminescence?
Yeah, so it comes from within light waves. Light is electromagnetic. Light is energy, as is sound. Sound is a very powerful form of energy.
So my question was essentially, energy can't be created or destroyed, right? So if you're saying that energy is coming, that you could use the energy from sonoluminescence, coming from the light produced by sonoluminescence, to power your home, where is that energy coming from if it cannot be created?
So this is the whole point. And I'm sorry, because this brings it round to religion and God. It can be created. And my scenario, which others have backed up, is that when lots of people, a dense population, go into a church, a cathedral, even an amphitheater, a lot of people in an acoustic environment where you have maybe a big dome at the top with a big circular glass window with stained colors in it, the sun that is coming through the top of the dome, through the refraction of all those different colors in the stained glass, combined with your singing and worshipping and the crowd coming together with that sound, creates a sound frequency with the light coming in that creates sonoluminescence as an incredibly powerful energy within religious buildings. Hence, spires and obelisks that take this energy upwards and outwards. So religion is created to make that happen. Religion is a way of persuading people.
My understanding is that sonoluminescence can only take place in media where there is a sufficient difference between a vacuum and the ambient pressure of that medium. So in water, for example, if you produced a vacuum bubble and there was water vapor surrounding that vacuum bubble, then you can have collapse that causes the emission of light. So are you saying that in a church, the singing produces a vacuum?
No, your body does. Your body is
Where's
the
the vacuum?
Your body.
Where's the vacuum? Because
the vacuum
you can't breathe in a vacuum.
The vacuum cause is simply because within the acoustics of the church and the building, you have a lack of oxygen because everybody is breathing out. We don't have loads of plants and trees in the
people can breathe in churches, right? People can breathe in churches.
But they have a reduced amount of oxygen because there's loads and loads of people breathing it in, and the carbon dioxide going out.
Is replaced by carbon dioxide. It doesn't make it a vacuum.
No. It's not a perfect vacuum by any means.
Well,
but
no,
that isn't the science of what I'm...
In order for sonoluminescence to occur, you need a large pressure difference between the ambient medium, which would just be like standard atmospheric pressure, and a vacuum or some low pressure state. But the pressure difference between the maximum pressure difference that you can have at sea level approximately is about 14 pounds per square inch. Now, if you have a very, very loud sound, the pressure difference that you can have doubles to about 28 pounds per square inch. But that's not nearly enough to produce sonoluminescence.
Okay. What do you think is the bubble? In my little analogy, what do you think is the bubble in the church?
I don't think that it's like that it means anything. There isn't a bubble because these things are physically detectable.
Okay. So can I just say, your body, particularly your brain, and think of an amniotic sac, your brain and your spinal fluid, you are a bubble. You are a gaseous entity with water fluid all the way through you. You are the gaseous bubble.
Liquid. We're primarily solid and liquid, right?
Exactly.
So
we are the bubble. We are the bubble.
No.
So you're saying that there's a vacuum inside of us?
I'm saying you don't need the vacuum for sonoluminescence to take place.
The vacuum is what causes the sonoluminescence.
I disagree. I disagree on that point. I disagree on that point.
Would you mind setting a source that says otherwise? Like, could you give us perhaps the source?
Penny, I just want to make sure you know kind of what you walked into. Dr. Blitz is a PhD in physics, and
okay.
And as it turns out, this is my personal 9/11 because I have an electrical engineering background. So you're torturing both of us right now with the pseudoscience.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, I didn't mean to torture. I'm here to give an opinion. It may not be 100% correct, but it's my opinion. It's what I've been looking at in a research point of view, which to me comes around to my conclusion that religion is manufactured to get people into buildings that create energy, hence their acoustic, precise mathematical engineering, just like the pyramids, just like all the places we've found underground, the old buildings, the old towns that are hidden.
Wasn't a gathering place.
By the way, I've pasted a reference for my claim that the sonoluminescence is caused by the vacuum collapse in the chat.
Thank you. I can't see any of that. As you can see, I'm outside in the sunshine in England in a garden, and I can't see anything because the sun's in my eyes, but I will take a look. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So Right. You're using a lot of buzzwords. I'm not entirely sure you know what the buzzwords mean or how they connect. So how did you arrive at this conclusion? What research did you find?
Okay, it's all posted on my profile on Twitter and X. On both those profiles, there's a lot of in-depth
No one's
research.
gonna watch that.
Well, they already have. There's about 2 million people that have seen it.
Well, there you go.
That's unfortunate.
A lot of people watch Woo, apparently.
So look, I mean, like the statement that you made, that energy can in fact be created from nothing, is a
No,
wildly
I didn't say
strong
that. I didn't
statement.
say that. Energy
Well, then where
cannot
is
be
it coming
created
from?
from nothing.
So then where is it coming from?
From the people. The people's
the people
sound,
have a-
from sound waves and the sun's light waves
where
coming
is-
together.
Right. So then there's no energy being created. It's just moving around, is what you're saying.
Okay, it's being harnessed. I'm not the physician, I'm not the brilliant scientist you are, but we are all walking around with energy within us every single day. We wouldn't be able to do anything without our energy.
Sure,
We are
they power
full
our
of
muscles,
energy.
things like that. They power our muscles, they power our brain, things like that. Sure. But then what's the claim? That like when people are singing in church, it produces light? Like what's the claim here?
Okay. It's like a tokamak in an atomic fusion situation where you get the toroidal tokamak structure, where you are
Of course she
running.
had to do toroidal nonsense. Okay. All right.
Well, Joe Rogan thought toroidal was quite fun, actually, and so did
Joe
Randolph.
Rogan's an idiot.
Is no idea
Well,
about
Randolph
science.
Carlson. Do you think Randolph Carlson is an idiot?
I don't know
even
who that is, but probably.
If he goes on
Well-
Joe Rogan, it's I have high Bayesian
Yes, I
priors
think
in
he's
him
an
being
idiot.
Yeah.
His website, the headline of his website is literally squaring the circle.
Okay, do you believe in ball lightning? The ball lightning energy from ball lightning experiments that have been done with Randolph Carlson and various other...
Are these peer reviewed? Are these peer reviewed experiments that have been done?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Do you know what journals they're in? Because I can just pull them up and we can take a look.
Okay, well, I am standing in the garden holding a phone, but if you gave me 2 minutes, I could come back. I could look
Okay,
on my other phone, find the research, or you could
I'll
just
do you
Google
one
it,
better.
or go
I'll
onto YouTube.
I'll just look them up.
Yeah,
So
go
I'm
onto
looking up
YouTube,
Ran-
put ball lightning in, Randolph Carlson, and you'll find it.
I'm looking for like peer reviewed publications,
Okay.
right?
Okay,
Not
go
like
into
YouTube's, not YouTube
science,
videos.
go into the Sci Forum, or go into Google Scholar. Google Scholar has it as well.
I'm there. So I found one thing on Google Scholar by Randall Carlson, and it's not published in any journal.
Okay, well,
It's
that's
published
one
on
thing.
his website.
There's one thing, isn't it? You just found one thing.
No, that's the only thing that I found.
Okay, right. Well, go and have a look on the Sci Forum. I don't know off the top of my head. I do this every day for hours, this research.
But then why don't you know it off the top of your head?
I
You do
know
it
the
every day.
person. I know the research. Have a look ball lightning. Look at ball lightning as a topic in Nature, in the Lancet, in...
Why would it be in the Lancet?
That's a medical journal.
Well, it's not just medical, because it actually involves
Yeah, it
medical
is.
processes using frequency to use healing. Things like ultrasound, which are frequency-based healing, are in the Lancet.
You can't heal people with frequencies.
Yes, you can.
So-
Yeah,
You can't.
I've cured herpes in cold sores by using light frequencies on them.
I doubt that.
No,
Well,
you,
I can
you
prove
shouldn't
that,
say
yeah.
that. That's not true. Don't
Okay,
say
go and
that.
look in the Lancet.
Yeah,
Go
you
and look
can't-
at
So-
can't cure
I'm not
herpes like
finding
that.
anything published by Randall Carlson in any journal about
It's
ball
not
lightning.
Randall, it's Randolph.
Randolph.
Penny, do you think that crystals can heal people?
I have no evidence of that.
Crazy.
So Randall Carlson was on Joe Rogan. Randall Carlson
Okay,
has a website, but I don't see anything about a Randolph Carlson.
right. Would you like me to go away? I'll get some research and I will come back, because I did not expect this level of interest in it,
Sure.
but I am fascinated and keen to pursue it.
Sure, we'd love to hear the research.
Okay, I will go and get it. Many
Yeah,
thanks.
All right.
This is going to be painful.
No, like I was saying, I think it's a travesty that they give British accents to people who are gibberators. They give like these like authoritative voices, like voices that sound like they could be on the news to people who say gibberish.
Well, she was, right? She was with the BBC.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Yeah,
terrifying.
and that's too bad. That is too bad.
Well, that being said, let me grab our super chats. We'll get our next guest in here. Amir, thank you so much for the $10 super thanks. You're our #1 fan. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And we got Texas in here this morning. Good to see you, Texas. Thank you for the super chat. It says YouTube commenters equal peer reviewers nowadays. That's about right. Also, I want to see what 2 million people viewed her electricity God woo stuff. This is crazy. It's crazy. Anyways, we got with us. I want to make sure I try to read this slowly. It's Velir
Otherwise, we'll make fun of you.
Riavira. How close was I?
Oh, my
Seems
end.
fine. You're
Your pronunciation was excellent.
I think I appreciate that. I'm
okay,
sure it was.
how is it actually pronounced?
Yeah.
Veloria Vera.
Oh, is it 2 words?
Okay.
No, it's like a compound word. So Veloria means like a green beryl gem, and then Vera means a hero. So like the hero of the equanimity gem.
What
Sounds
language?
fun.
It's in the ancient language of Pali, which was the language that the historical Buddha was said to speak.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
Dope.
Indeed.
So I'm going to call you Vel for short. Vel,
Sure.
we presume that you believe in some kind of a god. Is that correct?
Well, I'm a Buddhist, so I would say I work within a theological framework, although the way that the monotheistic God is kind of framed, I would say is kind of more metaphysical and assumptive than I would, take up.
Okay. You said you're a Buddhist. Who is the you?
What do you mean? Me?
Yeah.
Myself?
Oh, so you you affirm like a category of self? So you think like the Buddhist doctrines of non-being are wrong?
Well, the way that it's framed in Buddhism is not as like this philosophical ultimatum. So the Buddha says like, if you're observing the world and you see that it doesn't go the way you want it to be, like you can't just desire or will it to be one way or another, then he would say that is transitory. That is the appearance of forms coming and going, not a subsistent self. And so he's not saying like conventionally we can't speak of a self, that it would be unfair to speak in such ways.
But
Instead,
you
what
deny
he's
that you have any,
saying,
like ontology, right? Like you deny like identity, for example. Is that correct?
well, no, identity is conventional. I would say it's mundane and it doesn't need to be debunked.
But you would say that there's like no like real ontology there.
Well, there is a real conventional self. It's like if we look in the mundane world, then to say there is no self, to say there are no, it would be like saying there's no human beings.
But
I'm
isn't
curious, though.
Buddhism
Oh, wait,
about,
you're
like,
not
the
wearing a
rejection
necklace.
and maybe I'm confused about this, but isn't Buddhism about the rejection of categories, that these categories only exist because you desire for them to exist?
Well, no, it's a bit nuanced in that the way that enlightenment is approached is that it can't be described in terms of categories of existence. So if we said enlightenment is simply everything that exists, that the substance of it is equivalent to all essences, then that would be kind of a skewed way of talking about it. And if we said it's simply annihilation, that which is other than what exists, then that would also be skewed. And if we said it was simply a unity that reconciles these two opposites, that would also be skewed. And if we said it was a double negation, which simply transcends both categories, which is simply not existence and not existence, and furthermore, not the reconciliation, then that also would be assumptive. It would be skewed. So
Do you reject
it
the
works
law of,
outside
like,
of.
excluded middle, for example?
I personally come from like more of a skeptical philosophical background. So I personally, I would say I personally reject all 3 laws of logic.
Oh. Then how do you make
But not
valid
at a conventional level.
inferences? Do you hold to any laws of logic?
Well, like at a conventional level, it's like it would be meaningless to say that the laws of logic don't apply, that a thing isn't itself. But at the ultimate level, I would say any convention gets revised to something else. It is in becoming.
So do you think it's ever the case that like a proposition and its negation are true simultaneously?
Yes, I would say that a proposition is like it's partial in relation to like the whole world. Like this is like an idea in relation to the actual ultimately real world. Um,
Then the principle of explosion comes in, and then all propositions are true.
well, like I'm saying, like it would be, not philosophically nuanced to say that all propositions are true or all propositions are false, or that falsehoods and truths can coexist like with each other in the same statement, or something else that would be even more absurd. But that doesn't apply to the ultimate level. That applies to conventions. So like wherein we say like the concept in our mind, it aligns with and it corresponds to a real world object. It's something that's ultimately real. If we say those are one to one at the conventional level where we're just mapping things out, that's entirely acceptable.
Wait,
But if
so
we're
just- I
saying
just
the
wanna clarify.
terrain is mapped by our mind or is re-terrained by our mind, that's a different statement.
So, and just to clarify, are you saying that the ultimate level exists or that the conventional level exists?
So, like the conventional level absolutely exists, but
Or I'm
the
sorry,
ultimate
which one
level
is
is
the laws of logic true?
they would be true at the conventional level.
Okay,
So
at
that
the ultimate
ultimately,
level, could contradictions be the case?
yes, because our concepts don't necessarily cohere to the world itself. Now our systems are based on them doing that. So there's no place for me to say like all concepts don't align with concrete objects, but I can say that when they don't align with concrete objects, there can be a contradiction, and that does happen.
Okay, at the ultimate level, is it true that Buddhism is false?
I would say it's false, but that's a statement on faith. Buddhism is a faith-based thing.
Okay, but at the ultimate level, if you deny the law of non-contradiction, then that means that contradictions are fine.
Well, yeah, like you could have that conception in your mind where Buddhism is false. I would just suggest that the claims that Buddhism makes can be fulfilled. So where a Buddhist takes up faith, their faith can be fulfilled. Wherein they cast off doubt instead of just clinging to their sense of truth. Their sense is fulfilled by the actual reality.
Okay, so if we're accepting contradictions at the ultimate level, then that means we're accepting trivialism at the ultimate level via the principle of explosion, which means that it would just be trivially true that Buddhism is false.
Yeah, it would be like a trivial statement about the world.
Oh, cool, then Buddhism is false.
Research on meditation. So like, you could say like a lot about Buddhism is false, but there are parts of it that map onto ancient systems that are currently being measured by science. And like the place of this is like in the Emergent Research Phenomenology Consortium, they do publications on the nature of meditation. And so they take advanced meditators and they've tracked out a variable they call ACAM-J. It's not like the general domain network stuff. It's not, the kind of way that this holistic science has typically been done. It's a anomaly. It's something that isn't there in a control. But when you have an advanced meditator, you can track it from stage 1 of meditation, where they just start, all the way till the end. And this variable is what we're calling insight. So Buddhism is all about insight. Like, like if this couldn't be measured, it would be a serious attack on kind of the validity of Buddhism, because if insight isn't real, there is no enlightenment.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I just don't think there's anything else to say if we agree that Buddhism is false, so.
Well, we don't agree. So, like,
But you said
like
it's trivially
you're
true
working
that
at a
Buddhism is
relativistic
false.
level where I have to be able to prove for your relative perspective that Buddhism is true, and Buddhism is esoteric. So that's
We already agreed
not the
that
way
it's
it's
false, though. At
transmitted.
the ultimate level, we already agreed that Buddhism is false.
No, that's the conventional level.
Whichever level rejects the law of non-contradiction.
So, like, would you say that if a person rejects the law of non-contradiction, they can't be talking about anything that's ultimately real?
So, if you reject the law of non-contradiction, if you affirm contradictions, then that means that you fall into trivialism. The
No, you
principle of
misunderstood me.
explosion- Sure, what did I misunderstand?
So what you misunderstood was that I was saying that what's trivial and what can be contradicted is conventions, not ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is the final version. So if that has contradictions, then causality doesn't exist. There wouldn't be cause and effect.
Sorry. So, is the law of non-contradiction true at ultimate reality?
Yeah, sure, but it's not true in the sense of like relativistic conception. So like what we conceive to be ultimately real, ultimately ultimate, that in our own mind is not so. Our conception has to, continue to be true. It has to, in hindsight, be verified to be ultimate, to actually be ultimate. So if we go on and it's like, I say this conception is the ultimate truth, and tomorrow evidence supports the opposite, then it would be the case that my conception was not ultimately true, even though I said it was.
Okay, what's the evidence that your conception is ultimately true?
The future. That's the only thing that could be evidence.
The evidence doesn't exist yet.
No, the evidence is the actual world. Like that would verify whether something's ultimately real, concrete, or whether it's abstract, conceived, and in a transit of truth.
What? This
So,
just sounds
like,
like gibberish.
Sounds like gibberish.
let me rephrase that. So if something like has a trajectory where we say that trajectory is going to lead to the truth, it's going to present an object as it actually is, as its concrete nature stands, then that would be the truth. And if it just seems that way, and then the future tells that that's not actually the case, if we learn new things about the concrete world, then that thing that we said like had to be the truth, had to obey all of these axiomatic philosophical laws, it's not actually, what we said it was. And so we can be wrong. That's kind of the position that I'm opening up philosophically, is like,
so you're just like a radical
these
skeptic?
laws can be violated. Yeah, these laws can be violated because people can be wrong about what's ultimately real.
Do you know that you're having a conversation right now?
With skeptics, yeah. I'm also a skeptic, yeah.
Well, wait. We're not a skeptic in the same sense that you are, because it sounds like you reject like all knowledge claims.
Well, like at face value, yeah.
Yeah, we
They
don't
have to
reject all
prove.
knowledge claims. We make a knowledge claim. In fact, we say like God isn't real, for example. So we're not both skeptics, but if you're like a radical skeptic, then do you even know that you're having a conversation right now?
So, like, real quick, like the radical skeptic part, would you say that me being a radical skeptic, that means that I can't accept like the knowledge claims of empirical science?
Presumably, right? If you're saying that you
I
need
would say
to
no.
have it and that you couldn't possibly be wrong about it, then that seems like you can't even know that you have like hands, for example.
Well, like at a conventional level, a person can be radically skeptic and they can still operate in a kind of coherent, intelligible way. So, like, I can be a skeptic, and then I can also accept that the Earth is round.
So if you're saying like we have different, are you just saying like we have different standards for what's considered knowledge in different contexts?
No, because I'm saying we have the same standards. It's like I would accept scientific truth as you would, I presume, and I would still uphold a level of philosophical rigor where I would not just make absolute claims about that empirical truth. Now, I would practically work on it as if it's reliable, but
is it possible we find out in the future that like all of empiricism is false?
no, but the track record of empiricism has been paradigm shifts. So, like, we will most likely have future paradigm shifts wherein one crowd becomes ideological and archaic. They get kind of left behind, and a new crowd takes the reins of science.
I feel like I just got like opposite answers. You said it's not logically possible that empiricism gets disproven in the future, and then you gave an explanation wherein like
I don't think you
would
tracked
become,
there.
like different sorts of like empiricists or something.
No, this is like it's like like Einstein. He brought his like relativistic theory, and then a lot of people they didn't accept that. Like the scientists at his time, they got trapped in an ideological crowd which was not embracing that theory. And some of them went over to the new crowd and they continued their kind of reign in science. But some of them just went on and continued spewing the old science. And so like they were scientists and they did their work and whatnot, but they got left behind.
Wait, so what would the logical contradiction be in empiricism getting proven false?
Sorry, reframe that question for me.
What word or set of words are getting you tripped up?
Huh? Hello?
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Could you ask your question again?
Yeah. What would the logical contradiction be in empiricism getting proven false?
Well, there would be none. Or there would be like a temporary one, in that the people who believed it was true, when they got new information, it's like they could stick to their old conceptions, and they could be dogmatists, and that would be them kind of sticking to the falsehood. They would be, claiming that, like, I guess, like, a paradox has to be had for the other people to be true. Um, does that kind of answer your question?
So, and then I guess I'm just like confused though, then, because it sounds like my understanding is that you're saying Buddhism is true because, like the things that we know, like they couldn't, like Buddhism couldn't turn out to be like proven false, and that's like the
The
standard
insight
for
stuff
something
couldn't.
being true.
And I mean, it may be the case that it does like get proven, like there's something else to pay attention to. Like maybe this is like it may be just, what's the word? Like precise, but not accurate. Like we get repeatable results when it comes to studies on insight, but it could be that that's not what we're aiming for. We could be looking at the wrong thing. But at the end of the day, this is like a real modality. So like, like at a psychological level, there is such a thing as insight, wherein like a person can overcome certain psychological tendencies that otherwise would be perceived as natural and normal and okay, but are
I want
negative
to
on
keep
the
on engaging
mental
in this
state.
conversation, but I'm being pulled away from it by my evil co-host. So I appreciate you coming on up, and I'd love to talk to you at some point in the future. But I think people
Yeah,
are
go on to
probably
Ian's
just
live.
looking
I'm sure
for the
he'd love
God
this
debate.
conversation for a few hours.
We'll have to continue another time. I'd be glad to join again.
Yep.
Take care.
Adios.
Cheers. Well, that was something. Small Johnson, good to see you this morning. Small Johnson, thank you for the super chat. Says, have some monies. Wish I could stay for the live, but I got some heathen activities to do. We'll definitely watch it later, though. Well, thank you so much, Small Johnson, for supporting the live stream. And I hope you're doing something really fun, like fornicating or morning drinking, or I don't know, something they wouldn't allow in church. So, big W. I would appreciate the support. And Dr. Joe in the house this morning. Good to see you, Dr. Joe. Thank you for the super chat. Peer-reviewed research on meditation is compelling. Includes plus brain density, benefits in mood, immunity, heart disease, insomnia, and more. I endorse contemplative practice, but Buddha, not so much. Actually, I'm with you, Dr. Joe, and even with the guest, I got nothing against meditation, mindful practices, things like that. But I can't get behind any transcendental nonsense. That is where I draw the line.
I think I agree.
Yeah. But we've got some guests waiting to get in, and we've got some people on TikTok. Guys, if you're in the TikTok queue, I'm going to boot you out right now, and you got to read the screen. It says, join as a guest at tinyurl.com/UA guest. Click the link in the description of the video if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, and you can get into the conversation. But we will not be taking guests over TikTok because there's really no good way for our technology to allow taking guests on YouTube and TikTok at the same time. So, but welcome in, Alex.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I am fine. Or
Cool.
not.
And Alex, are you at least 18, and do you believe in some kind of a God?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. And which God do you believe in?
I believe in a mind that created the universe.
It's like a deistic God?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Does
what's
it-
the evidence?
Yeah.
I would say that every contingent reality has an explanation.
Well,
Okay.
not every. Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
Okay.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, there's a couple of approaches. We might just say that every state of reality is necessary. We could just be necessitarian, and we can just be necessitarians. We could also just say that there's like an infinite regress of contingencies.
Sure. Is there a
Alternatively-
logical...
Oh, there's one third option. We could just grant that that's true, and then ask why is it the case that the necessary cause is a being rather than say a principle.
That's where
That's
I'm
a
at.
third
Yeah.
route. But yeah, there's essentially three routes that we can go down, I guess. Ian, do you have
Okay.
a preference?
Sure. Okay. Do you accept that every contingent reality has an explanation?
Um,
I mean, do
I'm
we
not sure I'm
know?
ready to grant that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Do we know what the explanation is for every single thing, or do we just admit that there is an explanation for everything? Because obviously, I agree there's an explanation
There
for
is an
everything.
explanation for everything.
Whether or not we always know what the explanation is a different story.
Yeah.
So when an electron has an upspin, what's the explanation for that?
Okay. I would say a cause.
What's the
Something
cause?
is causing it to go that way. Yeah.
What is
So
it?
in kind of traditional quantum mechanics, there is no cause, right? It's an undeterministic procedure, or an undeterministic process rather.
Is it dependent on something for its existence?
Depends
The
what you mean on,
electron
like,
or the electron's
dependent?
upspin?
Both.
So the electron, I mean, arguably it doesn't depend on something insofar as it is an excitation in the electron field. But the upspin is in some sense contingent in that it could have been something else. This is, by the way, just
Okay.
for
Sure.
context.
Yeah, that's my point.
This is for context here. We're talking about you start off with an electron that's in a superposition of half up and half down, and then you make a measurement. You find out that you measured up. You measuring up, at least in kind of orthodox quantum mechanics, it is contingent. It could have been another way,
Yeah.
and yet it is completely uncaused. It has no explanation for why
Okay.
it's up rather than down.
Yeah. My point is, it could have been any other way. It couldn't be.
Right, but that doesn't. But in this case, at least in orthodox quantum mechanics, it doesn't have an explanation.
Okay. Sure. I mean, by saying that contingent, I mean it could have been another way.
Right.
Yeah.
So the electron could have been another way,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have an explanation for why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
We don't know it.
No.
No. I mean, the orthodox interpretation of quantum mechanics stipulates that there is no explanation, that it's a purely stochastic event.
And that's an orthodox way. Is there another way?
There
I
are.
mean, sure, there are other preferred
Yeah, sure.
interpretations, but
I cannot say anything about that because I'm not educated on the topic. But if there is other way, I guess it's an open.
yeah, so there are other ways, but those other ways tend to be less favorable towards the existence of a god.
I'm
because,
saying,
like, you know,
is there
either they're
any other way to
deterministic or
explain
things
it?
like
Yeah.
this.
Is there a way? Yeah. Then it's an open field. There, it's not certain. So, what's the problem with it?
Well,
It
so
is-
wait, so I guess like you could say if you hold like many worlds, Blitz, how do you feel? Do you think that locks you into like determinism?
Many worlds is absolutely deterministic, yes.
Okay, sure, yeah, then
Yeah.
then there are no contingent things.
many worlds. What? Okay, can you?
It's a competing explanation for why the electron is in the upspin rather than the downspin. This does give an explanation, namely that it's not only in the upspin, it's in the upspin and the downspin simultaneously in kind of two disjoint quote-unquote worlds. But one of the other implications of this interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is not the orthodox interpretation, is it locks you into essentially necessitarianism, meaning that there are no contingent things.
So that exists in all possible worlds. In every hypothetical scenario, that electron exists. That being
Well,
is there.
yes.
There is no scenario in which it wouldn't be absent.
No. That is kind of the implication of many worlds, yeah.
Is there a logical impossibility in saying that the universe could have been another way?
If you take many worlds seriously, kind of. Like, if you take many worlds to be true, then yeah, it just follows directly that every state is a necessarily follows from the previous state, and the previous state goes, and there is no first state, and so there is no way that it could have been different because every state is determined by a prior state in a necessary way.
Can you repeat the last part?
Every state is determined by a previous state in a necessary way, if you take many worlds seriously.
But I believe in the sufficient reason.
Right, so the sufficient reason only says that contingent realities require an explanation. But if you take many worlds seriously, then you're basically locked into the statement that there are no contingent realities. Everything's necessary.
I don't hold that everything is necessary. So
Okay, then you can't use many worlds.
Is there a contradiction in saying? Is there a logical contradiction in saying that the world could have been any other way?
If you
Is-
take seriously many worlds, then yes.
I don't.
If you don't take seriously many worlds, well, now you have to come up with some alternative explanation for why the electron is the way it is.
What, the one that we talked previously about?
Yes. Many worlds is a resolution. It explains why the electron is the way that it is. But if you reject that, then you need another explanation if you still want to hold to PSR.
So the electron, I'm going back. Can it be any other way?
Depends on
So
your
it depends on your
interpretation.
preferred interpretation of quantum mechanics. Depending on how you interpret quantum mechanics, you will either get the answer is no, it could not have been any other way, or yes, it could have been any other way.
Okay, so which one says it could have been any other way?
The orthodox interpretation.
Okay, yeah, so what's the problem with it?
The orthodox
doesn't-
interpretation stipulates that there is no cause for why it's the way it is. It explicitly demands that there is no cause. That this is a purely stochastic, truly random phenomenon.
So it's not dependent on anything else.
Right.
Can I look it up? Can you give me the source?
Just look up Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics and you'll find it. There's probably an article in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. The Wikipedia article will do a decent explanation as well. Of course, there are other interpretations as well, like, for example, the Bohmian mechanics interpretation, but that has stochasticity built into it as well, so there's still no cause. There are other more fringe interpretations that people don't really take that very few people take seriously. There's like cubism, which I don't understand at all. There's this newfangled thing called relational quantum mechanics, which I also don't understand, or transactional quantum mechanics, which I don't understand. But all of there is essentially no room in physics for a cause of a contingent random process. And one of the features, this is what won the Nobel Prize in 22, is essentially proving that if quantum mechanics is contingent, this is a paraphrasing, but the statement is that if quantum mechanics is contingent, then, or if the results of quantum mechanical measurements are contingent, then they are truly random.
I'm looking in just a second. It says it has some conceptual issues. Just a second.
Yes, yeah, sure, it does. It does. It's still the orthodox interpretation. If you have some better interpretation, by all means. The conceptual issue, by the way, is exactly the one that you're bringing up, namely that it seems like a problem that this behavior has no cause. That's one of the conceptual issues, anyway.
So, yeah, just a second. I'm reading it. Okay, let's say just random things happen.
Yep.
And if we allow something to happen for no reason at all, then the principle anything could happen without reason, science would be crippled, wouldn't it?
No.
How?
One could stipulate that stochastic events happen,
We could say
namely that we
some
can only
things-
predict probabilities, but we cannot predict the exact outcome.
Is there a difference between an event being random to us and it having no explanation at all?
I don't think so. Well,
No, because even quantum events happen according to probabilistic laws. They aren't
right, but the actual
uncaused
outcome
magic.
the outcome of a given measurement, again, in most in the orthodox interpretation of quantum mechanics, is the outcome is not the actual outcome is not caused by anything. Now you can predict the outcome of many such things using probability, but you can't actually predict the outcome of a given event. In that
No,
case,
but it's not
genuinely
uncaused
random.
magic.
Nobody's saying it's magic. They're just saying it's
If there is no
stochastic,
reason
it's
at all,
genuinely
then
random.
it's magic. The PCR doesn't even demand the determinism.
How if there's no cause at all, it's magic? How does that inference follow? Magic is
Because
supernatural.
Even
Something not
quantum
having a
events
cause
happen
doesn't mean
according
it's...
to probabilistic laws. They happen for a reason.
Sorry,
There
what's
are-
the cause for it being up rather than down?
Low,
Love? Did I hear that correctly?
low.
What law?
Wait, I read it. Okay, sure, I cannot find it, but
There is no known cause, by the way, just to be clear.
you're saying that by saying that you're not implying that there is no cause, there is no known
Well,
cause.
it could be that quantum
Possibly.
mechanics is wrong. It could also be that that interpretation is wrong, namely that maybe many worlds is true, in which case you have like all events are simultaneously realized, and so there is no it is just up for no reason. It would be in all possible states simultaneously. But like there isn't an interpretation of quantum mechanics that I'm aware of that gets rid of that can both avoid a violation of the PSR and avoid necessitarianism.
Okay, do you rely on the assumption that things don't just pop into existence for no reason? Or change for no reason?
I think. What do we think about virtual particles?
Virtual particles are fake news.
Oh, never mind then.
But do I rely on that assumption? At a macroscopic scale, sure.
So you say that events might be random, but having no explanation cripples down our logic in science because everything.
No, because you can still characterize the behavior of large-scale systems. It's just the individuals that you cannot predict and that have no explanation.
No explanation at all, or no explanation for now?
Well, I mean, you could say that you could do a quantum mechanics of the gaps if you want, and say, oh well, we don't know the explanation yet, but eventually we'll figure out the explanation. But that's
because
trending
if
against
there
the
is
modern
no
scientific
explanation, why
understanding.
don't things pop into existence randomly?
Because the whole system is still governed by Schrodinger's
Laws,
equation,
and
essentially.
that's a cause. If
Right.
you're
No.
saying
But
that-
but one of the laws of one of the laws is that upon measurement of quantum systems, there is a stochastic process that is uncaused that picks one of the states at random. That is one of the laws, and then the other law is that when you're not measuring a system, the system evolves deterministically.
So by saying random, you're not saying that there is no explanation, and
There is no. When I say random, I mean that for a given measurement, there is no explanation as to why it ended up with one outcome as opposed to another outcome.
So
That's
there
what I
is
mean.
an explanation why it exists.
Oh well, I mean, why the measurement exists, or the measurement exists because a person wanted to do the measurement, but there's no explanation as to why the outcome of the measurement is what it is.
There is still laws that govern it, and it still has a cause.
Not that govern the action, not that govern the output of the experiment. No, there are laws that describe many such experiments. So you can talk about a canonical ensemble of such experiments, and then you can talk about probabilities. The laws will tell you what the probabilities of many such experiments are, but it cannot tell you at all what's happening for a single experiment.
Okay, so I don't understand. If you're saying that there is no explanation, why don't we see things that just pop out of nothing?
Because seeing things that would pop out of nothing would be seeing macroscopic things. And macroscopic things, being the collection of many quantum systems, behave probabilistically according to the Born rule, which is the law that says you can't say anything about a specific measurement, but you can say things about you can't explain a specific measurement, but you can explain or you can predict a large collection of measurements.
Can you repeat the last part?
Yeah. And we're just going off of orthodox quantum mechanics here. There are two laws in orthodox quantum mechanics, or the Copenhagen interpretation. The first is when you're not making a measurement, quantum systems evolve deterministically according to the Schrodinger equation. The second law is that when you perform a measurement, the outcome of the measurement is randomly chosen from a probability distribution according to the Born rule. And the Born rule is a mathematical statement relating talking about what quantum state it's in and all of this stuff. But the important point is that the actual outcome is only determined probabilistically. It is not determined, or explained by any feature. The only thing that you can say is when you make a bunch of measurements of the same kind, you can know what the outcome is. But even then, it doesn't stipulate any causes. It's just the measurement. You do a measurement, and then a random thing happens, and there's no explanation for why the random thing is the way that it is.
But it's not uncaused. You just don't know the cause.
That's an assertion. Why would anybody believe that?
Because then why would we believe in science and logic at all if that's true?
Because this would be so all that's happening here is that the PSR is just not applying to microscopic quantum systems. But it would still apply to macroscopic systems because macroscopic systems don't behave quantumly.
Isn't that just a preference that you're saying just to prove your point?
No. This is just orthodox. This is just orthodox quantum mechanics. If you don't like it, go disprove it. This has been the scientific understanding for 100 years.
Wait, I feel like this is like super easy to track. Like I'm just not sure where we're getting caught up.
No, I'm tracking it, but it still doesn't make sense for me.
Okay, then go win your Nobel Prize and prove that it actually has a cause.
No, I'm not saying that it has a cause that we know for sure. I'm just saying there should be a cause, but if there is
why?
not,
It sounds to me like you're just saying, the understanding that we have in science is wrong because you say so, and I'm not sure if that's a persuasive argument, but
It's question begging, right? Like the premise in question is whether or not anything is unexplained, and then we give him something that's unexplained, and he's like, no, that must have an explanation because everything is explained. It's just question begging. It's a circular argument.
But I'd like to hear the argument of how it is that you go from your initial argument to a God existing, even though
I think he dipped.
Oh shoot, he dropped.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I was waiting for the rest of the argument. I was hoping the argument would go somewhere, but I guess it's not going to go anywhere. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. We've got a couple people waiting to get in on the TikTok queue, and we're not taking guests on the TikTok queue. So if you're on TikTok, read the screen. There's a link on the screen that says join as a guest at tinyurl.com/UA-guest. You can get in on the conversation. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to give us any personal information. You just got to punch that URL into your browser.
No.
I did it. You can't stop me. It's going to keep happening.
I heard you hesitate. You were said tiny URL.
There's nothing you can do about it. Boomer's going to boom, okay? Adam Brown, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. It says, rock hard for Doug and ready for the cookout this morning. Well, big W, Adam Brown. Appreciate the support. And hail Doug, the Rock of Ages. And Amir says, I have no idea what this conversation is about. And don't feel bad, Amir. I don't think most people were tracking where Alex was going with it. And I don't think Alex was tracking what Blitz was saying. And there's a lot of tracking errors going on. And Johannes Brahms, good to see you. Thank you for the super chat. It says, guest trying to find what fits his preconceptions. Actually, I think that's about what was correct, right? Which is why it kind of terminated in question begging, was he kind of already had a conclusion that needed to stay in the argument for the argument to work, and he wasn't willing to move off of the conclusion. So, but anyways, we've got Chris and Christos waiting to get in. And we love you, Christos, but we're going to prioritize guests that haven't been in here multiple times. But when we're done with Chris, if you're still here and there's no other guests, we'll pull you right up, Christos.
Yes, we'll pull you right up, Christos.
Chris, welcome in.
Oh no, there's an echo.
Yeah, Chris.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Chris, can you turn your speakers down quite a bit?
Your speakers down.
The stream is going in the background. Maybe turn that off. I don't know.
Yeah, one sec. Sorry.
Yeah, like whatever the stream is playing through, it's feeding back into your microphone.
The stream is playing through, it's feeding.
What about now? Is it better?
Let me
Testing.
See. I think it's better.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Well, I just firstly want to say thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate the respectful debates you guys are having. If it's okay, I'd like to hear your guys' side of the argument first.
Depends on the God. So which God do you believe in?
I align myself with the version in the Bible, but so Christianity.
Sure.
Okay.
So there's like a lot of arguments for why the Christian God's not real. I think if you believe that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, then you've got a huge issue because it's clearly errant. It's also true that it gets history and science wrong. It contradicts itself, and Jesus didn't fulfill a single prophecy. And I think for me, like if there was one proof I would give for Christianity itself being wrong, I would give the many failed prophecies of Jesus and even some of the failed prophecies of the Old Testament that never came true and will never come true. So for me, like when I catch Jesus lying in the New Testament, he simply can't be God because God cannot lie, according to Numbers 19:23 and 1 Samuel.
Okay,
there, bud?
I see what you're saying.
You there, bud?
I see what you're saying.
So,
Yeah. So,
what would be the argument, though, that the Christian
yeah,
God
so
does
I
exist?
would respond to it in this way. Like I understand that the topic of prophecies like and potential contradictions can be challenging, but I believe there's like layers of understanding that scripture in scripture that go beyond face value. So like some prophecies might appear unfulfilled due to the nature of the biblical language, timing, and also like just the different interpretations.
Well,
As for
my
Jesus,
claim is that
while
Jesus
it's
didn't
clear
fulfill
that the
any prophecies, not even one.
yeah, as for Jesus, like while it's clear that the Bible teaches God cannot lie, I think it's also important to consider the nature of Christ's role in the New Testament. Jesus's purpose was not to lie, but to fulfill God's plan in ways that sometimes transcend our immediate understanding of
Well,
time and events.
I
If that makes sense.
disagree. What would be the argument
Okay,
that
sure.
that is the case?
I'd love to hear.
Chris? Where'd he go?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat that?
Yes, I disagree. I think the New Testament completely contradicts the Old Testament. The Old Testament says that the law is forever. It envisions the law being performed literally until the end of time. That's a figurative form of speech. I don't think there's an end of time. And the New Testament says the opposite. In fact, it says that the law was a temporary schoolmaster until Christ came. And Paul himself says that, you know, if righteousness can come through the law, then Christ is of no use to you. I think Chris might have a bad connection.
I think Chris might have.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, sorry. I think it's kind of delayed on my side, but I'm getting what you're saying. Yeah. So can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I would love to also so this is what happens when I talk about the prophecies. I'll say things like Jesus didn't fulfill any prophecies, and then Christians, rather than showing me a prophecy that he actually fulfilled, they'll say like really generic statements. Well, like Jesus was the Old Testament was pointing to Jesus. Well, that's an ambiguous statement, right? I'm talking about like specific prophecies. Like we can just go into the actual prophecies and see what they're about, and then ask ourselves, hey, did Jesus fulfill it?
I understand like where you're coming from, and I do agree that the New Testament like presents a shift in how we understand the law. However, I think it's important to recognize that the New Testament doesn't contradict the Old Testament, but rather fulfills it.
It contradicts it.
Let me try to like Jesus and Paul emphasize, for example, that the law served as a guide to show humanity's need for salvation. So Christ's arrival didn't
Jesus didn't say that
nullify
at
the law.
all.
Well, Christ's arrival didn't nullify the law. It revealed its purpose, which pointed to the need for a savior.
Not even
So
close.
what I'm trying to say is that Paul's message wasn't that the law was useless, but that
Listen,
it was never meant to
Chris,
be our
I feel like
author.
you've heard these talking points, but you don't actually know where they're at in the Bible. Can you point me to a single passage that says anything that you just said? Because Jesus didn't say anything like that. This is
Okay, I
kind of
see
the
where you're
problem
coming
with Christianity is like they
yeah,
read the
I'll
words
give
of
you,
Paul and then they assume that Jesus and Paul had the same idea, but they didn't.
Yeah, I could try to. So I understand, and I think that you're right that I think you're right that Jesus didn't say those exact words, but his actions and teachings can be interpreted as fulfilling the Old Testament law. So, for
But
example, in Matthew 5,
17 through
in Matthew
19.
5, Matthew 5:17, for example,
Yep.
Jesus himself says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come to abolish. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." So
Keep
what I'm saying
reading.
is that
Keep reading, Chris.
the law
Keep reading.
pointed to the need for
Chris,
something greater,
Chris,
and Jesus came to
Chris,
complete that need.
Chris, keep reading. You missed 2 more verses.
Well, I'd like to touch on that first part first, if
Well,
that's okay.
read the next 2 verses because you're gonna embarrass yourself if you don't read the next 2 verses.
Next two verses. Next two verses.
Well, I mean, respectfully, man, I'd like to make the point about this first part because
Well, the first
it's
part
part
is
of my
contingent
argument.
on the next 2 verses. So you got to read the whole thing. I think there is a really big delay too. I think it was just like a 6-second delay. And Ian
Yeah,
went
there's a
quiet.
bit of a
Ian, you're
delay.
muted right
So
now.
do not.
I mean, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
No, that's my bad. I was muted.
There you go.
It says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven." So this verse highlights that Jesus didn't come to do away with the Old Testament laws.
You nailed it, which means Paul was
trying
wrong.
to fulfill them.
Which
But
means
the
Paul
idea
was
that-
wrong.
The idea that Jesus' life, teachings, and sacrifice fulfilled the prophecies and the requirements of the law,
Chris,
it shows that
Chris,
the
can
law
you hear
wasn't-
me talking when I talk?
I mean, I do, but
Is
I'm
there
trying to make.
is there a
point. You're
reason
just
why
not
you
letting
just
me
you're on
finish.
like the ramble roller coaster and like you don't actually respond to anything I say?
I read the full
So
verse
Paul
and I
and
gave you a
Jesus
part of the Bible,
so
like
Paul
you
and
asked.
Jesus don't agree, which is my point. Jesus says that the law is going to be in effect until heaven and earth pass away. Paul says that it's already been done away with.
Got you. Okay, I see where you're coming from. I would say that it's true. It's true that in Matthew 5:17, it's true that Jesus emphasizes that the law will remain until everything is fulfilled. However,
Until heaven and earth
Jesus'
pass away.
Jesus' purpose was to fulfill the law, not to abolish it.
But
as
he didn't
fulfilled
fulfill
it.
the law. He broke the law.
Well, I'd like to finish explaining, please. Thank you. So
It's already wrong.
this
Like,
is
yeah,
what's the
purpose-
point?
you're already
Jesus-
wrong. What are you trying to finish? You're finishing
Is-
being more wrong.
Well, I'm trying to tell you how he fulfilled it. If you would let me
Well,
finish.
but if what
please.
you've laid out is already wrong, then we should probably stop and talk about it.
Okay, yeah, sure. If you want to ask a rebuttal question, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So he said that the law is not going to pass away until heaven and earth pass away, right?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
He says not a stroke will pass away from the law, not a letter until heaven and earth pass away, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have heaven and earth passed away?
Yes. Well, I'd respond to that by
Just
saying
a yes or no.
this underscores the permanence of the law.
Just
Your
a yes or
argument.
no.
It indicates
Have
that it
have
remains
Evan and
intact
passed
until
away.
everything is being fulfilled, but which many interpret as referring to the completion of God's.
Chris, I muted you. This is not hard. I know there's probably a delay, but I just, if we're going to be responding to the stuff that you say, then you have to respond to the stuff that we say. All I did is ask you a very simple question: have heaven and earth passed away? And it just requires a one-word answer.
But brought it to completion.
He's still talking.
And I would also add on to that by saying after his work
Chris,
on the cross,
Chris,
the purpose
Chris,
of the law was shifted. The law,
Chris,
like I'm not, the law still
Chris,
has
there's an
value, but
enormous
it's no
delay.
longer.
Chris,
It's no longer the means
I think
by
there's gotta
which
be an
we
enormous-
achieve righteousness.
Chris,
that comes through faith.
Chris,
Chris, can you hear us?
So,
Chris,
I
can
mean,
you
would
hear
like to dive
anything?
into Paul's writing,
He's doing like the
or, I mean, we
Deathless
can do
Light
that.
special where you just like turn the volume all the way down.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. Okay, so I'll just mute him until he's done talking. So, Chris, here's the thing: we'd love to have a conversation with you. Nobody cares for your preaching. We've all heard it. We've heard it more than you've heard it, so it's not helpful here. What we'd love to do is engage in a little bit of dialogue. Before we can do that, maybe our delay is too great. So we're going to do a delay test. And I want you to let us know what type of a delay we're on. I'm going to count to 3. When you hear me say 3, I want you to say 4. Can you do that for us?
Sure.
1,
No.
2,
Come on.
3.
2, 3,
4.
2, 3.
Bro's listening on the live, I think, on TikTok.
Yeah, sounds that way. All right. Well, listen, Chris. Your connection's awful.
If it's easier, I could try to reconnect and like try to come back later.
Get some Wi-Fi and come on back. And next time, don't just ramble. Nobody cares about rambling. It's not going to get you anywhere. If you want to have a dialogue, you have to engage in actual dialogue.
Well, you asked for passages. I gave you passages, and then I explained them to you. So I don't see.
You didn't explain anything. What you did was ramble and failed to engage in any actual dialogue. So, but coming back when you get some Wi-Fi, okay? All right. Well, we got Maxwell in the guest box, and we got a couple of super chats. Guys, thank you so much for the support. And Aaron, good to see you this morning. Big W, Aaron. Says, Dr. Blitz, what are your thoughts on the repeating burst theory by Richard Liu? Have you heard of it?
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, me neither.
Now I have to go look. Thanks for the homework.
Yeah, apparently.
Dr. Blitz, what do you feel? How do you feel about the answer to the question? If Sally is traveling at 27 miles an hour.
What's the question?
Yeah, if Sally's traveling at 27 miles an hour and she leaves at 12:30, but Christina is traveling at 40 miles an hour and she leaves at 1:30, the point or the distance at which they will cross paths. How do you feel about the answer to that question?
Strongly.
Okay.
So, I mean, according to Sci-Tech Daily, it's a theory of repeating bursts that could explain everything. A bold new theory suggesting that the universe didn't begin with a single bang, but instead unfolds through a series of ultra-fast, invisible bursts.
You know what? I do remember looking at this, or hearing about this, and I didn't actually look into the details, but it makes a claim that the cause of things like dark matter and dark energy are unobservable. And I'm like, okay, well, then how could we test it?
Right.
Like it seems like there's a fundamental like or empirical problem with this theory.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And we got a bunch of people trying to get in on TikTok. Guys, I know, I get it. Sometimes reading the screen is hard, especially when I've got it covered with a super chat. So I'll take the blame on that one. But the link to join is on the screen. It's tinyurl.com/UA-guest. If you want to get in on the conversation, you have to actually join using the link on the screen. And as you request, I will continue to dump you out of the TikTok queue because we're not taking anyone over TikTok. But join with the link on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. Adele, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Adele says, Jesus didn't say that. I just somehow know that's what he meant. Every call ever. That's actually a really good point. A lot of Christians want to tell you what Jesus was thinking and what he was doing and what he came for. But then when they run up against what he actually said, it's a different story. But they're somehow still right. And Mr. Marcus, thank you so much for the super chat, says, what's the point of this? Are you actually like a anti-Christ gospel? Why? Are you like trying to recruit souls away from salvation? Marcus, it sounds to me like you might be a Christian that's never encountered somebody who doesn't believe in your mythology. The point of this is that truth matters and it affects people's lives and it affects the society that we live in. And so we are challenging the God claims. It's not just about the gospel or Christianity. It's all religions, gods in general. We're challenging the entire idea of God. Now, it just so happens that the Christian God is super easy to disprove. But
yeah,
Marcus, if you think we're crazy, you're welcome to get into the conversation and prove us wrong. Shit, maybe you'll make 3 new Christians today.
Yeah, exactly.
And Johannes, thank you for
If
this.
it's true, I'd like to be a Christian.
Shit.
Yeah, same.
But
Right,
anything
like,
that's true,
if I'm
want.
gonna get fucking tortured forever, then sure,
Yeah.
sign me up for church.
Listen, at least if you go to the Catholic Church, you get wine. So I mean, it's pretty dope.
Yeah, but
Damn,
you could
hold
just go
on.
to like a synagogue and get wine too.
That's
and
true.
You don't have as many weird restrictions about like, I don't know, gay stuff.
Indeed.
Or abortions.
That's true. I heard that there was there's like a tradition of like lesbian rabbis or something like that from one of my Jewish friends.
There definitely exist lesbian rabbis.
Okay.
Actually, I know one of them on TikTok. That's a conversation for a later time. But Johannes, thank you for the super chat. It says lots of preachers in chat. Why don't they call in? Well, the reason why they don't call in is because the Holy Spirit hasn't enabled them to provide an argument. But maybe we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? We're gonna do what we can. But we've got Maxwell with us now. How you doing, Maxwell?
Oh wow, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we
Hey, how
can.
y'all doing? That's great.
Doing well.
I just got a warning from TikTok. It says your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted in search results because it contains unoriginal or reproduced content. It does not.
Bro.
The same thing.
Just appeal it, and if our views start to drop on TikTok, we could just restart the TikTok live while keeping this up. It
This
doesn't
fucking
matter.
guy.
Yeah. Maybe should we just restart the TikTok now?
That's the wise thing to do.
I wouldn't until the views start to drop, to be honest, because we still have 700 people in here.
We'll see what happens. This happened last week. This is original content, TikTok. Anyways, maybe
It's just being multi-streamed.
maybe they should ban TikTok. Okay.
Real.
Oh, it's most of my income.
Not okay. Ban TikTok until Blitz gets a job at a U.S. university.
There you go. That's the pro strat. All right, Maxwell, what's up?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to discuss
Fuck.
I guess God. Now I think y'all go about it from a Christian side of it. Am I only supposed to go?
No,
I guess any side of it. We
Any
prefer
notion.
it
As
if
long
you
as it's
believe-
not like God is my water bottle, then you're fine.
Yeah, we'd also
okay.
prefer like debates about like God, like a mind that created the universe.
Okay. Well, I just believe that. I start with my basic, I guess, fundamental thought is that God is a perfect form, and I mean that's the most basic statement I can make. Like God is just the perfect form of everything.
Can you help us understand what you mean by form?
Yeah. So I mean, if you can envision something, right? Let's say like a hammer. You know, you can start from kind of rough, like a stick, right? And you use that to, hammer something. You can call that a hammer, but you can make it better. Make it out of metal, weld. Improve upon it, and you're getting it closer to like a better form of a hammer. And that can keep going up, I think. Now, I think we as humans cannot make a perfect hammer, but the idea of a perfect hammer exists, like theoretically, I guess. So with
just the
go on.
Platonic one?
Say again?
Or do you just believe in like the Platonic one?
What do you mean by that?
Well, it seems like
My
you're
guess is
citing
probably
like
yes.
like you just.
I'm not
it
sure
seems
what
like
that
you're
is, so I
citing
wouldn't
like
say
the Plato's like theory of forms,
Oh, sure, yeah.
So the ideal version of everything, just the Platonic one. But the problem is, do you think like the Platonic one has a mind?
You mean like something that governs things?
Just like a thing that has like conscious experience.
Um,
Like, do you think God like knows things? Do you think God wills things?
I think it does. Well, not in the fact that it's like consciously doing it. I mean, I think we as humans have minds. I think mind. I would say mind is the connection between that perfect form and a physical form. We don't fully control our bodies. We don't say when our stomach growls or when we get hungry or things
So,
like that. That comes.
Would you say
go
that
on.
this being makes decisions, or this perfect form makes decisions?
I think it influences decisions because we as humans cannot.
That wasn't my question, though.
Oh, no, I don't think it makes decisions. No.
Okay, it sounds like your view is compatible with like Platonic atheism, then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could Platonic explain that to me, please.
You can just say that there's like an ideal form of everything, right? There's like the ideal chair, the ideal person, the ideal everything, but none of these forms have a mind, and that if we just have the forms, then we don't need God. We can just explain all the stuff with no God required.
Well, I mean, I would say that we can look at his chairs and trees and stuff like that, but I think perfect goes beyond that because you kind of look at like, let's say if we go back to the hammer, you can keep improving upon it, but I think how do I say this? It loses its form of what we know as a hammer the more perfect it gets, and I think that's when it all becomes one.
Well, if it's a perfect hammer, then it has to be for the purpose of hammering. Like once it's no longer good for hammering, then it's not a perfect hammer.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, like if at some point the hammer turns into like a bulldozer, or like any other thing, like a thing that you can't hammer with, at that point it's not the perfect hammer.
So you would say that something can't perfectly hammer, and let's say
just to be sure, the perfect hammer already exists. It's called a nail gun.
So I mean, the nail gun could be used for other things as well, right? But I'm saying like it could have multiple forms, and what I'm
Well, a
getting
hammer
at
can
is,
be used for other things as well. All these things can always be used for other things as well.
Yeah, so I think that it's like a loose shape that we don't fully understand that perfect form. I don't think we can understand that form. That's why you say, I don't think the perfect form, what I would call God, is a conscious being. I don't think it has consciousness the same way we have consciousness. I don't think that.
Wait, it has a different consciousness?
I think it has I would. Well, let me put out what I would say.
Does God have thoughts?
No. It's the God.
Oh, okay. Well, then I just don't think I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Well, I wanted to make a point here because I do think God still governs our life, and
yeah, but I could say the laws of physics govern our life, and the laws of physics aren't God, right?
How do the laws of physics govern our life?
Well, they dictate the behavior of everything in the universe. And our lives are things in the universe?
They explain, and they
right. My point is it depends on your like ontological view of the laws of physics. You might take them to be like, causative or something like that, or you might take them to be like necessary or some, a description of some set of powers or something. But the point is that like you could say that there is some natural or some non-mental thing that governs our lives, and that thing wouldn't be God. So it just seems like you're not talking about, like when people say God, they're not talking about the thing that you're talking about.
I think they are. I think we misconstrued a lot of stuff, and there's some confused people. Believe Christians when they talk about Jesus and they talk about the Father. It's the same thing I believe in. I think when I look at Buddhists, it's just like that perfect idea. And what I mean by governing is like you can't be a better person unless you follow that perfect thought. And I think that's what God is. And, you talk about laws of physics being governing laws. I think those are just more not regulations, but like defining factors like, I can't do this unless that. you're not going to achieve anything higher with the laws of physics. You know, they're set in stone. They're at where they're at, and that's just a kind of rule of the
By the
natural
way, I
order.
just want
Yes.
to. Sorry, I
Go
have to interrupt. There's a guy named Melchizedek in the comments on TikTok. Says he can explain it all with physics, one equation, and they are done. So just an invite, Melchizedek. Go to the link in the background, and we'll bring it
Yeah,
up at some point.
Melchizedek, we'd love to hear you explain it using science, but again, you have to use the link on the screen. We're not taking any guests over TikTok.
But anyway, you say that it sounds like you're saying that yes, Christians actually agree with you on what God is, but like we talk to a lot of Christians, they absolutely don't.
Yeah,
They
this
mean
is-
something
well,
with a mind,
yeah.
with a conscious existence, etc.
It
I
sounds
mean-
like Maxwell is like you fit more into like a Buddhist framework than a theistic framework, because like we can just say that like there's
But I'm
some
more
sort
Hindu.
of a transcendental reality that doesn't require a bodiless mind decision deity, which is kind of what you're describing. You said, unless I heard you incorrectly, you said that the God that you're referring to doesn't make decisions, right?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's just not what we mean, right? Like there's when we I think that we should be harsher on this. I think we should say, hey, only request up if you believe that a mind created the universe. You need to believe that a mind created the universe. If you don't believe that a mind created the universe, then don't request to join.
Right.
Well-
I mean, definitionally speaking, God is a decision-making entity. It has capacity for rational thought and decision-making. And it sounds like you don't really believe in that. You believe like
Well, I do,
similar to what
actually,
the
but-
Buddhists believe, where you believe in like some sort of a transcendental reality, but not necessarily a creator entity. So, and that's fine, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like an actual God. Like
Yeah,
a,
it's
I
just
think I can
compatible with our
explain a little
claim.
bit better if I may.
what's that?
So I think I can explain a little bit better if I may. So those are my fundamental like thoughts, meaning like, you know, that's the foundation. Those are the roots of my belief. And I think, you know, because of I think you guys are looking at that like, oh, if those are my foundational thoughts, you know, I lack that spirituality that I believe that God can control, you know, things in life that like I live on, you know, God's plan.
Is your belief
I-
system compatible with the idea, or is it incompatible with the idea that is your belief compatible with the idea that a mind did not create the universe? Because if it's compatible with the idea that a mind did not create the universe, then it's not incompatible with the claim that we're making.
Sorry, I'm confused on that point.
Wait. The point is that if we're here to debate, then you need to be negating the proposition. If what you're saying is compatible with the proposition, then it doesn't negate the proposition.
Well, I mean, you guys say that God isn't real, and maybe so. You guys define God as a.
A mind
a
that created
mind?
the universe.
Why would you say God is a mind?
Did
That's
God-
what most people think.
Who's well? That's not.
Most people think that God is a mind that created the universe.
So just to be sure,
Let's-
like
let's
if
get
God
opinions
lacks
on
the
this.
ability to make decisions, then he couldn't have created anything, which means it's not a God.
So you would say gods have to make decisions?
In order for God to do anything, you have to make decisions. Like me getting on this live stream was me making a decision. Like you can't do things without decision making.
I think you're applying a very humanistic view on what a god can be. Because
No, it's
if
just
a god,
it's just
is a
definitionally
god,
true.
let
Like
me
you
sorry.
have to be able to make decisions to do things. And so if God
Well,
can't do
you cut
things,
me
then
off
he's
here.
not God.
Well, I want to say, if God is a god, it doesn't live in one time, and therefore
The
there
time is
no-
irrelevant. The question is, does the God do anything?
The God is and has made one decision and
But-
it exists.
Oh,
I
you
think-
okay? So you said that God didn't make decision. Now you're saying he made one decision.
Well, I mean, if I'm using your I'm trying to explain it. I think you're looking at it in a weird way. I mean, you're saying a God has to make human decisions.
No,
Wait,
I didn't
who
say
the
anything
fuck
about
said anything
human.
about
Well-
human?
well,
Wait,
I'm
why
saying
do people
God's-
have like insane selective hearing? I just don't get
Well, no,
this.
I
It's
think
wild
to
nobody
me.
said
that.
what I'm saying here. I'm saying that
Does your God do things?
Decisions are very human in nature. Decisions are
Maxwell,
what the mind
just
does.
focus.
Yeah,
Does
sure.
God do anything?
Yes,
What does he do?
exists and he's the perfect form.
Other than that,
Or
what does he
they
do?
are. What else does he do?
Did it
Or
create
they do?
anything?
No. I mean, it's like
Oh.
Okay, so
I mean,
so you don't believe in God.
is
Okay,
God. Well, no.
congratulations. All right.
I don't think.
Listen, Maxwell, I think you're really confused about what's happening here, so we're going to move on to the next guest, but I appreciate you coming up. That guy had no idea what's happening right now.
Yeah, let's just be super clear about this. Hey, if you request to join, think that a mind created the universe. If you don't think that a mind created the universe, we don't want to talk to you. If you're just here to like gibberate, we don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. Welcome to atheism, by the way, Maxwell. And Marcus, again, with the super chat. Listen, Marcus, you can disagree with us as long as you keep paying us for all your super chats. Thank you so much for helping the Atheist Fund. It says, King David asked, why does the heathen rage? That's the age-old question. And I would ask, why are you reading a trash Bible version that you don't even understand? Because you think the word heathen refers to a non-believer in God. The word heathen in the King James Bible just refers to basically to a non-Jew. It's somebody who is a goyim from the nations of a different people group. So in like actual English, you would say, why do those nations over there, why do they rage? Why do they conspire? It has nothing to do with belief in a God. But good try. That was an adorable take that you had, and we appreciate the $5. And Johannes, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, do the lesbian rabbits have Hebrew hymens? That's actually a really good question. We've got some biblical conundrums now. But everyone forgets about the rock badger. Let's not forget about the rock badgers.
It says lesbian rabbis, not rabbits.
Oh, shit.
Justin not beating the illiterate
This fucking
I swear,
guy.
guys,
allegations.
If I don't get glasses this year, I'm in a lot of trouble. But anyways, Johannes, thank you so much for the super chat. Let me read this correctly. It says, do the lesbian rabbis have Hebrew hymens? And
No comment.
I could only assume the ones that are Hebrew do, which, by the way, reminds me of one of my favorite jokes.
Russell wants to come up. Russell, please come up. Please come up,
Please
Russell.
do it.
Russell, please,
I can
Russell.
run my precept destroying argument against him. That'd be fun.
I can't wait to get Russell in here. All right, let me give you the worst dad joke in the world and watch everyone groan, and then we'll read our next super chat. A priest, a pastor, and a rabbit walk into a bar. And then the rabbit turns to the priest and the pastor says, hey, guys, I think I'm a typo. There we go. Colin, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, you're all the best content creators on TikTok. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that, Colin.
That's so sweet.
And Blitz and Ian are absolutely dynamite, amazing content creators. So we've got...
Melchizedek says in the comments, not going to another website for TikTok. Well, then you can't join. Sorry, bud.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I guess.
And it's the requirement to be on live.
I guess God will remain unproven. That's too bad.
It's not even an app. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to put your email address in, nothing. You just put it in your browser and it connects you with the live stream. It's really not hard. But whatever, we'll do what we can. All right, let's get butt hair.
Mokapine?
Have we
Is
talked to this
Mokapine
guy?
first or is butt hair first?
Well, I'm going to get butt hair. I've talked to Mokapine quite a few times already.
Okay.
So I'm trying to prioritize new guests, but certainly we can take Mokapine next. He's always a good sport to talk to. Hair, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Welcome in. It looks like your screen name is legitimately butt hair, and I don't want to call you butt hair.
Booth there. Go say Booth there.
Booth there.
Booth there.
Sounds amazing.
There you go.
Okay, so Booth there, welcome in. Are you a believer in some kind of a god?
I wasn't until about 2 years ago.
Sure.
Okay. Do you think
So
a mind
yes, the
created the
answer is
universe?
Do I think what?
A mind created the universe?
Oh, hell no.
Oh.
Oh shit! All right
Well.
then. W.
No.
You're an atheist.
Yeah, welcome to atheism.
I was atheist. I'm now more spiritualist. I believe in the yin yang theory, and I believe in some of the more outrageous views.
Do you believe in God? Do you think God is real?
I believe God is real in other people's minds. Those who
Oh.
believe in Him,
Oh shit.
He's real.
We agree.
For them.
All right, God is imaginary. We agree on that point.
Yeah,
Big W.
he has
Yes,
the
God
same.
is-
He has the
God
same
is- God
ontological
is-
status as a fictional
Uh,
character. We agree.
Yeah, but the belief in the Big Bang Theory,
Oh boy.
that's religion.
Sorry, you cut out. What did you
If
say?
you believe in the
Please
Big
tell me you
Bang
weren't
Theory,
about to
you
say it was
believe in
religion.
So Bouthair, before we
No,
continue this conversation, can you connect to the Wi-Fi because your connection's choppy, and I want to hear what you're saying,
Sorry about
but
that.
it's hard to hear
switch
it.
rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll switch rooms here. Sorry about that. No, if you believe in the Big Bang Theory, you believe in something. You believe. The fact that you believe it, whether it's proven or not, the fact that you believe it makes it religion.
Well, that's not what a religion
But
is. Religion is a
yes,
specific
It's also
belief.
not what a belief is.
So
Every single
a
atheist
religion
is
is a
religious.
belief in some kind of a god.
No.
Yeah.
It's the
Look,
belief
I mean, we
in
could just look at the
something.
definition of religion. When
Okay,
you say
so-
religion, there is a particular meaning that most people mean. It's something like the
Yeah,
belief
well,
in and
why are
worship
you
of a
listening to them? Why are
superhuman
you-
power or
if you
powers,
don't
especially
believe
a
in
god or
why are
gods.
you
There's
Yeah.
nothing supernatural or worship involved in the belief that the universe was once very, very small. It's just, this is an equivocation, and it's
But-
not even a fun one.
But here's the thought.
Right. So
What if the Big Bang Theory
is-
only works for galaxies, not the universe?
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. The universe
Okay,
contains
so what's
the universe
Okay, so
contains
what's
the
the Big Bang Theory?
galaxies, so it is kind of a category
okay? So
issue.
what's the Big
So,
Bang Theory says that
sounds
we
to
all
me-
started from a tiny
so-
point, right?
So, but here it sounds to me like you don't actually believe in a god. You just don't understand science, and that's fine. But I think what we'd like to do is to
Science is
debate
hard to
people
understand science,
who actually
actually,
do
and
believe in a god.
I've studied more than one religion, and
I'm sure you have.
what I
Cool.
what I what I
So
pulled out
if all
because-
of us
because I
have
listen
too,
to
that doesn't make
myself
us
in my own brain,
religious.
and actually, use my brain to think about it all. There's things that you start to realize after a bit of time. Religion is necessary.
No, it's not.
Oh, yeah, it's
Under
very
what
much
modal
necessary.
scope is it necessary?
For when the masses,
Shut up, Ian.
So when the masses are
What
confused,
would be the logical contradiction
when the
entailed
masses
by
are
Give me the
religion not
P and
being
not P.
necessary? Is there any possible world where religion does not exist?
Oh boy.
if religion didn't exist, there'd be a lot. This world would be a lot worse.
I disagree.
I disagree.
How many people died in
Even
the
if that were
Inquisition?
true, it means
Because
it doesn't
there are
mean.
so many religions
Even
that
if that were true, it
clash.
means those possible worlds exist.
So because some religions clash, that's very unfortunate. But the religion was there
That's not what we
to
said.
ease
We
people's
didn't
minds
say that.
from the
So-
confusion, right?
So what I'd say the fact that like less than 50% of American Christians believe in climate change as evidence that religion is bad, right? Religion is just terrible at dealing with
climate change is
existential threats.
bullshit. Climate
Yeah,
change
you're a
is-
perfect
it is-
example of why religion
it's
is
100%
bad.
BS. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're literally you are part of the problem. You are like condemning a younger generation to horrific suffering.
okay, so
And the sponges agree with us, not with you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there is no
Facts.
climate change. Yes, it is changing, but it's not.
But it's
something
not
recent,
us.
and it's not something recent.
It is something recent. You can measure it
No, it's
directly.
not.
It started
Yeah, it
in the
is.
last 150 years. Yeah.
No, we've only had 150 years of
Sponge him.
recording climate,
Sponge him.
right?
Yeah, no.
Sponge his
So
ass.
here's the lovely thing.
Right?
We actually
So
can
if you go-
study
if
the
you go past that
exoskeleton.
150 years.
But here, you're gonna have to shut up. We actually have data that goes back hundreds of years. Like
Okay.
reliable temperature data that goes back hundreds of years that doesn't rely on human temperature or human thermometers. We can
But why
actually
don't,
examine
why don't
the.
you look? Why don't
we
you
can-
look at thousands of
sh-
years?
But
and
but
tens
here,
of thousands of
we
years?
also can look
And
at
you'll see
thousands
the
of
Can we mute him
difference.
for the Dr. Blitz
yeah.
explanation? I want to hear Dr.
Yeah, I
Blitz
actually want
explanation.
to hear a real scientist.
Yeah. So there's a few things happening here. So we can look back thousands of years. We can look at ice cores, and we see that the climate does change over very, very large scale or very, very large time scales. However, the current change of our climate, the increase in temperature by about 1.5 degrees in the last 150 years, is astoundingly fast, has never before happened in the history of the Earth without some cataclysmic event happening. Another example would be, for example, the meteor that killed the dinosaurs. That would have certainly have caused this level of climate change. But absent a cataclysmic event, This has never ever happened at this rate before, and we can verify with high degree of precision that this increase in temperature only started about this increase in temperature at this rate only started about 150 years ago, and we know that by looking at the exoskeletons of sponges and the ratio of strontium to calcium in those exoskeletons, because those correlate directly with sea temperature, and we have that data.
Oh, sorry, I
Go
muted
ahead.
him. Go ahead.
Sorry, what happens after an ice age?
Yeah, slow warming, of course.
Slow warming. But what
Yep.
happens at the end of that warming?
It cools down again, slowly.
No, the warming increases before it starts cooling down.
No, if the warming has ceased, then it is no longer warming.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
tautologically
but
true.
before
You
it
said you
ceases,
just said
it's
that
going
when
to
it's done
increase.
warming, it warms more.
When it's done, it's not done
Find me
warming
another-
yet, though. That's the thing.
Find
We're
me another
not
example.
done warming.
Find me another
The Earth
example
hasn't
in
warmed up yet.
geological history where the Earth has warmed at this rate. Find me another example.
Just the dawn of machinery. You know,
That's this example.
Yeah. Thank you. You prove our point for us.
That's the industrial age.
The
That's what you're
industrial
referring to. Yes,
revolution
that was the beginning of
kicked it
climate, right?
off. Yeah,
the
yeah.
industrial
Based,
age. Yes.
hold on.
Before that, let's see. There was one.
Welcome to science,
during
but Harry, you
Roman
finally did it. All
There was
right.
one
Sorry,
listed
what was the
during
other
Roman
example?
times.
There
one-
was a period. There was a period
I
of
can't
1.5
remember the
degrees
details
Celsius
of it,
increase during
unfortunately,
Roman
but there was
times.
one listed during the Roman times. They had a
Oh, what source?
time where
Can you give me a
it
source for
went
that?
really cold and then really hot.
Do you have a source for that?
No, I don't. Unfortunately, I really don't, and I'm trying to remember what it was. And listen, I'm 50 years old. I've forgotten more than I remembered.
So I'm currently looking at data from, say, the last few thousand years, or from the last few thousand years, and there's let me just copy the image. This is maybe Justin, you can pull it up.
Yeah, send it to me over Discord. I'll pull it up.
Because over hundreds of years, it goes up and down and up and down and up and down. But over time, it continually.
Oh shit. This is a wild one. You're gonna like this.
Damn.
And this is like you get this is
1 second. Let me get it on.
I think the Earth just does that. I think that's
It
just what
just
the
does
Earth
that on
does.
its own.
It's just a global thing.
So
It
we
does
think
it all
this
the time.
this giant
Wait, you have to
spike.
move it over.
Oh, sorry. Let me move it.
Yeah,
This-
you can't see it.
This giant spike here on the right. You think that's like a naturally occurring phenomenon?
Hang on. I
The
don't.
red
I don't
one,
see
the
what
red
you're-
part of that. You think the red? Does that look normal? Does that maybe?
I don't
look
see. I don't
a
see what
tad
you're
bit
putting
out
up
of
on the
place?
screen. Sorry, I had my chat section up and I couldn't see what you were showing me.
Right.
I'm only getting one person at a
Oh,
time.
hold on. Give me a second. 1 second. I can manually share my browser with you. Give me a second.
And by the way, that data comes from a paper published like 12 years ago, so it's going to be a lot worse if it was using modern data.
Can you see that?
No, I can't. Unfortunately, I'm on a cell phone.
Oh, it should be doing a screen share with you right now. I don't know.
Right,
Maybe.
yeah, right now, all I'm getting is you, Justin.
Oh, interesting.
Let me punch it into the.
Oh, hang on.
Let me just.
Oh no,
let me
it's
just
not
punch
in
it
my
in.
chat.
I'm just gonna punch it into the chat here. Here, there's the link.
I don't see it. Sorry.
You don't see the
Wait.
chat? Just press on your phone, and then there should come up something that's like a speech bubble. Press the speech bubble.
Oh,
there
there
should
it
be a
is.
link. Press the link.
Got it. So,
Yep.
yeah. So what I'm looking at. So go back further. Right. Think
You
about
said
this.
the
Go
Romans.
back,
This goes back
Your claim
10,000
was the
years.
Romans.
This is
Yeah,
10,000
but go back.
years.
right, and go back further, and it's going to go back up again,
This is-
and then it's
Wait,
going to.
wait, this is 10,000 years.
Wait,
It's
do you
gonna-
you asked-
acknowledge?
you said the
do you acknowledge
Romans.
that you were just dead wrong about the Romans?
Yeah. Okay, but on the other hand, what are you looking at right now?
Wait, doesn't it bother you that you just like spread misinformation? Like, doesn't that like give you pause to reflect and think like, wow, if I was just completely wrong about that, like maybe I should just reevaluate my belief before I keep pushing forward?
Yeah, but
Nah,
We're
who
all-
would
we're all
want to do
people
that?
Every Christian out there does it. Why can't I?
You shouldn't.
You
Nobody
shouldn't.
should.
It's bad.
Yeah, we agree. We shouldn't be doing
But on,
that.
but
It's
on the
bad
other,
and
on the other hand,
cringe.
if you look at that data, right, that goes from Ice Age to now, and okay, look, it's shooting back up. So if you go back further than that, 10,000 years, and you go back 20,000, and you go back 30,000, and you
Yeah,
go
do you
back
want me to
40,000,
show you data for that too? We have data for that too. We have
you see
data over the
repeat-
last 800,000 years.
Okay, and you see repeating patterns, right?
Wait, no, we don't.
But
we
yes,
don't
what's,
see this.
What's that? What's that? A million
to be
years?
Clear, to be clear, we do see repeating patterns, and those
Yes.
repeating patterns are slow.
Yeah.
Yes.
None of these repeating patterns includes a period of about 100 years that encompasses 10,000 years worth of climate increase.
I see spike, I don't know, your info and what you were showing me is different from what I saw.
You can just do the
So-
experiment yourself. Like they've got at home experiments you can do where you can create like an atmospheric chamber and introduce different types of emission, like carbon emissions into it, and you can monitor the temperature that gets created inside of the.
And I mean, to be clear,
Okay.
so it's very obvious that
I'll-
carbon dioxide
I'll
causes an
take,
increase.
I'll take your word on this one, but in my view,
it's
in my
very
view-
obvious.
in my
It
view-
is a known phenomenon that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. So that's why it's called a greenhouse gas, because it traps heat. You can do this, like you said, at home, as Justin described. Now, in the last 800,000 years, the CO2 levels in the atmosphere have never been this high. Not once in the last
yes, but
800,000 years.
we did damage back in the 80s that we're still healing from, right? In the 70s and the 60s and the 50s.
Well, you're referring to
Right?
the ozone issue.
Yeah, the
Remember-
whole
yeah,
time,
yeah,
the whole
exactly.
time
Ozone.
since the industrial revolution, we've been emitting tons and tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, literally
Right?
tons.
We used to heat our homes with coal.
We still do.
England,
Some people still do
England
anyway.
used to go like, you couldn't step outside.
Yes, and that's the cause of the warming. That's the
Yes.
point.
That's what
But
we're
on the other
saying. Yeah,
hand, it takes a lot. Look, it takes time to heal from that. Now,
we're
on the
not
other hand,
we're not healing
Nobody's
from
doing
it.
anything about it. We're
There's
causing.
no-
Wait,
there's
so
no healing.
we agree. So we agree that we are the cause, and we need to take time to heal from it. I'm glad we agree.
Yeah, it's bad. It's
Thank
getting
you.
worse, and
But
Christians
on
are an
the other-
obstacle
on the
to
other
it
hand,
getting
it's
better.
So
how are we trying to heal?
So listen, but here we appreciate the conversation, but I think we're way off topic at this point.
Oh yeah,
Super off
I
topic.
agree. I
So
completely agree.
it sounds to me like you don't really have an argument for God existing, unless we heard you wrong.
Well, no, because I believe that your belief in the Big Bang Theory is your belief in your own God.
Nope, wrong again. Okay,
I mean, that's cool, but like, it's just not what belief. It's just not what God means. It's not what belief means.
right, yeah. So all right, so it sounds to me
Whoa,
like
Dr. Blitz. Dr. Blitz committed a murder, and by committed a murder, I mean he unmuted his microphone.
It was a metaphorical murder.
Yeah, well, listen, Butt Hair, appreciate the conversation. Your beard is epic, and
Thank you.
hopefully you have a good day. We're going to move on to the next guest, okay?
All right, have fun.
Cheers.
Toodaloo.
Well, we're going to get Mocha Pine in here next. Thank you for being patient, Mocha. Rock Hard for Doug is in the chat this morning. Good to see it, Rock Hard. It says, this guy needs a deity he can touch. Praise Doug and Sharon Stone. Absolutely. Listen, every time I step outside, I see Doug everywhere I look. He's everywhere. And Marcus, again, these Christians just keep
I love this guy.
giving us money. You're welcome. As many as you want, Marcus. It says, you believe in all caps. All caps. Remember, the nations are raging.
Believe.
This guy, I'm going to read this correctly. You believe in global warming based on data. I see why God sends folks to hell. Y'all send yourselves to hell. These Christians.
Sad face.
Actually, he's laughing and he's sad at the same time. His laughing, sad face. That sounds like multiple personality disorder is
You
what it
believe
sounds
in
like.
data?
Oh my gosh. I shouldn't believe in data, should I?
This is why Christianity is harmful, by the way. Because Mr. Marcus is a great example of a Christian who thinks that climate change isn't real, and is thus making our planet worse.
Also, keep in mind that Mr. Marcus thinks that it's good that we go to hell merely for not believing in your fairy tales. It doesn't matter if like we've committed a crime or we've harmed people or anything like that. It only matters if we don't believe in your fictitious God. That alone is worthy of eternal torture. Sounds like a good, loving God to me. All right, we have seen a kind of a precipitous drop on TikTok. Should we reboot the TikTok stream?
Yeah, we can reboot TikTok.
All right.
By the way, Melchizedek, nobody saw your formula.
Yeah, no one cares much is it. Until you get into the guest box, no one cares what you have to say. But we're going to restart the TikTok stream and try to get past this situation. But we're going to keep it going on YouTube and everywhere else. We're just going to restart it on TikTok here in like 10, 15 seconds. So it shouldn't be a big deal. Let me grab a Mocha Pine and pull Mocha Pine into the conversation. How you doing, Mocha?
I could use a mocha right now, to be honest.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right, the TikTok stream is back up. Hopefully it won't get restricted again. It's ridiculous. There's
no guarantees.
I know, right? But anyways, we've got Mocha Pine with us. Mocha Pine, can you hear us? Mocha?
Mocha, we can't hear you. Seems to be some mic issue.
Yeah, Mocha, if you're talking, we can't hear you, and you're not muted on our end. Let me see if you have a
know, Kent Hovind is currently live.
Shit.
On TikTok?
Yeah.
Guys, go into Kent Hovind's live and send him to us.
Please.
That would be so fun. I'm actually friends with him on TikTok.
Please.
Yeah, me too, actually. I watch his... Although most of his live streams on TikTok are just... Like he's live streaming on YouTube and then porting it over to TikTok. He's not really interacting on TikTok.
Yo, tell little bro to call in.
I mean, I doubt he will. He would never leave.
Wait,
his,
I have
I'll
drop it on my Discord server. Hold on. Let me go find the link.
I'm trying to get Mocha Pine in the conversation, but he's having a little bit of trouble with his microphone.
How can I find this dude's live?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear Mocha Pine now, yeah.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Yeah. What channel? What channel is this dude on?
You're talking about what's his face, Mr. Dr. Kent Hovind?
Yeah.
Kent Hovind official.
Yeah,
might have you blocked.
Keep in mind that doctor is more of an air quotes doctor. If you've seen his PhD dissertation from Patriot Bible trailer in the desert.
Okay.
Anyway, Mocha, what you got for us?
Sorry, how you doing, Mocha?
Yeah, I'm glad Justin is here to introduce me to the other two gentlemen. Thanks.
Yeah, Mocha's been good to talk to. We've talked a couple of times.
Yeah, you guys are really challenging, so it's good. I think that's really good. Anyway, I wanted to refer to the earlier conversation where you're talking about those two verses between Jesus and Paul, and I wonder if we can put them side by side on the screen, but if not, that's okay.
There might be a way to do that. Let me see if there's a way to do that.
On my screen, I've got Matthew 5 up, if you want to share that, but...
Yeah, I got Matthew 5. I'll put it on the screen. I don't know if there's a way to put it side by side because I have to go to different browsers. I know a Bible Gateway has an option to do parallel text, but I don't know how to do it.
Just make it smaller so that it appears, so that we can still see Mocha's thing next to it.
Well, I mean, I've got...
Can you see my screen sharing?
Yeah, what you have on the screen is what I have on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, Matthew
Maybe you could put up
5...
the other one from Paul.
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll just do our best to remember it, okay?
Well,
Okay.
we can do both of them. So Matthew 5 says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly, I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass away from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven." Now,
Right.
which passage of Paul did you want to read next to that?
Whatever one thinks you does the most damage to that.
Well, I
Like you
think
said,
there are a couple of them. I would probably point to Ephesians chapter 2 is a pretty explicit reference in Ephesians 2:14 and 15. He says, for he is our peace. In his flesh he has made both into one and has broken down the dividing wall, that is, the hostility between us, abolishing the law with its commandments and ordinances, that he might create in himself a new humanity in place of the two, thus making peace. So he seems to be suggesting
right,
that the law has been abolished.
right, and yeah. So these, so yeah, that's pretty good. I like the other one too, though, that he brought up, or that you were talking with the other gentleman about, that he just abolished the law. I can't remember what the verse is, but it's all. I mean, it is very Pauline, and on the face of it, it certainly looks like he's directly contradicting Jesus, right?
Yeah. If Jesus said, I did not come to abolish the law, and then Paul says that he abolished the law with its commandments and ordinances, I would say that's just a direct contradiction.
Right. Now you went to seminary, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, I don't know the answer to this. Like, what were they teaching you to do when you became in your vocation there?
So I think people are pretty confused typically about what happens at seminaries. So seminary typically is not a place where you go and you learn what to believe. So now that could be true if you go to a very like denominationally specific seminary. Like if you go to, for example, like a Southern Baptist seminary, they typically want you to learn the Southern Baptist beliefs. Like they're very rigid. But if you go to a typical like a Lutheran seminary or Presbyterian seminary, or I went to a Brethren seminary, they're not so much concerned with teaching you the doctrines. They're more concerned with giving you the tools to do it yourself. So, for example, you'll learn Greek and Hebrew and history. Sometimes you'll learn cognate languages like Egyptian and Aramaic. And then they'll teach you the proper tools of exegesis and things like that. Now, you are going to take theology courses, obviously, but the theology courses are pretty expansive. So you're going to learn about all kinds of theological concepts, not just one, right? So when it comes to talking about like how do we interpret the difficult parts of the texts, most seminaries aren't taking these difficult texts and saying this is how you should look at them. They're saying here are the tools you need to look at these passages and come up with an answer for yourself. The goal of seminary is not to train you in theology, it's to train you and equip you to be a theologian yourself.
I think that's a pretty good explanation of what's going on today in most seminaries, most churches. So, would you say an extension of that is to, as a pastor or preacher in a church, that is to explain a text and say, "Here, I'm explaining what is in this text to you"?
Well, that is technically the job of the pastor, right? So, and that's why, there's like, these difficult passages have so many different explanations, is because you go to seminary, the seminary trains you to be a theologian yourself, but they don't necessarily dictate to you what is the correct theological interpretation. And then you go to work on the text. And sometimes when you come up with a contradiction, you either do one of two things. You say, hey, this is a contradiction. Or number two, you like bend yourself into a pretzel trying to make it not into a contradiction. And most pastors will typically either one, avoid it altogether so they don't have to turn themselves into a pretzel, or they'll turn themselves into a pretzel.
Yeah, the two paths.
So, I mean, I think that's intriguing because literally at the seminary in St. Louis, you brought up Lutherans. They made a point of saying that explanation of the text is the death of the gospel, but I don't think many people really get that. Even in the pastors, even in the preaching in the congregations, they don't really know. They just sort of forget that. But I'm only using that as an illustration here. But I appreciate what you said there because I think it shows that people think that the role of the preacher The use of these texts is to explain them and not to do what is in them, not to be about doing them. And that's, of course, being a little cryptic, so we'll have to get back to these two passages to show you what I'm talking about. But for example, you see this contradiction. Jesus says, I'm not coming to abolish the law. And then Paul says, the law is abolished. So, I mean, we see these paradoxes quite often in Scripture, so this is probably a perfect one to address. So maybe we can nail them all in this one fun fell swoop. But my point is, like, how does the Bible tell you how to use it?
No, because when the Bible was written, it didn't exist. They were individual documents. So it would be impossible for the Bible to tell you how to use the Bible when it didn't exist.
I mean, this is really important. Like, this is a key point. Do you see why I'm saying this?
Yeah.
Okay. So the use of the law is also not included in that. How to use it. I mean, we have examples of how people were using it at the time. But then Paul seems, the reconciliation of these two verses.
That's what we're looking for. Yeah. So
Yeah.
my understanding is that you've come up with a reconciliation for this contradiction. I guess that's what I'm waiting for. Did you have an explanation for how they don't contradict?
Right, because it's in their use. So Lutherans have something called law and gospel, and this is what they do in their preaching. And so Jesus didn't come to abolish the law, right? It stays. But the use of it may change. See how that works?
No.
If you have it as a constitution, if you have the Torah saying, this is our constitution, the ontology of it, this is how we live, well, the praxis flows from it. But if it says also that it's never to go away, which Jesus confirms, it's never going to go away, so it's still in force today, even now, the Torah is still in force for a certain group of people.
Well, is it enforced for humanity?
Oh, well, see, that's a mistake that a lot of Christians make when they get on here and talk about it. They think that it's enforced for the Gentiles, but it's only enforced for that certain group of people.
Well, the problem you have is in the Old Testament, it envisions the Gentiles engaging in the following of the Torah. So Isaiah 56, Isaiah 66, Deuteronomy chapter 30. There's a bunch of passages that talk about this ideal world, which when the nations come to worship Yahweh, they'll be participating in the offerings and sacrifices and the Sabbaths and whatnot, just like the Jews.
Can you read that from Deuteronomy 30?
Yeah, Deuteronomy 30 is the most explicit in terms of what we would call like the New Covenant era. So let me go to Deuteronomy 30. It's like verse 4. Let me double check. Verse 4, 5, and 6. Let's see. Yeah, starting in verse 6, talks about the restoration of the people. It says, the Lord your God will bring you into the land that your ancestors possessed, and you will possess it, and he will make you more prosperous and numerous than your ancestors. Moreover, the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, so that you will love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and in order that you may live. The Lord your God will put all these curses on your enemies and on the adversaries who took advantage of you. Then you shall again obey the Lord, observing all of his commandments that I am commanding you today. So this idea that God is going to circumcise the heart of the people, not the flesh of the people, which is reiterated in Ezekiel 36. This is the new covenant era, correct?
Yes.
All right. And he says that he's going to do it so that they would be able to obey all the commandments that he is commanding them today. And then we find in Ezekiel 44,
Who's them?
was Israelites, but keep listening. In Ezekiel 44, he talks about what's going to happen with the foreigners in the New Jerusalem during this new covenant era. It says, thus saith the Lord God, no foreigner uncircumcised in heart and flesh of all the foreigners who are among the people of Israel shall enter my sanctuary. So he's saying you've got to be circumcised according to the law in order to even enter into the sanctuary and worship the same way Israel worships. And why would they be doing any of that? Well, they would be doing that because in Isaiah 56, this new covenant era, this era where like God is doing, like bringing all the nations to him, it encompasses burnt offerings and sacrifices. Isaiah 56:6, and the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord to minister to him, to love the name of the Lord, and to obey his servants, to be his servants, all who keep the Sabbath and do not profane it and hold fast to my covenant, these I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all people. So the idea that like all the nations are going to come to Yahweh, that is included in this new covenant era, but it also includes the sacrifices, offerings, Sabbaths, and festivals.
And now Isaiah was quite a bit before Jeremiah, right? Like 200 years.
Well, Isaiah 56, I think, was written honestly after Isaiah or Jeremiah wrote. Jeremiah seemed to be writing just before and during the Babylonian exile. Second Isaiah, I think, was written like right before King Cyrus freed the people from exile.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that because it's going to trip us up in our conversation just in understanding each other. But I like the Deuteronomy 30 quote. I don't think it has anything to do particularly with the new covenant. It's because one, it's a direct prophecy. It's like one of the awesomest prophecies. I don't think it's the awesomest prophecy, but he is talking about Israel according to the flesh in Deuteronomy 30.
Right. And when is Israel going to have their hearts circumcised?
Very soon.
When though?
Well, I mean, unless it gives you a time frame, I can't tell exactly.
But it's going to be during the New Jerusalem, right?
Are you referring to Revelation?
No. Revelation is referring to Ezekiel on the New Jerusalem and Isaiah.
I mean, I'm not sure how. I know how Moses is using Deuteronomy here, and it's coming to pass even as we speak. 28 through 30 is him calling heaven and earth against this entire people, and the timing of it is incredible. But my point is that the use of the law is how you divide and I'm sorry, I lost my thought because I got to get back to this.
Right.
The use of the law as a, like, say, a constitution, we call the three uses. Have you heard of that? The three uses of the law?
I'm not familiar with three uses of the law, but I think none of them actually address the problem, which is Paul says that the law was abolished, which is a contradiction of what the Old Testament says. Paul himself, a Jew, a Pharisee of Pharisees, says that he is no longer held accountable to the law.
Exactly. And that's
a contradiction. That's what we're saying.
Right. So if the law cannot, let me explain the three uses. The first use of the law is a curb. The second use is a mirror, and the third is a guide. So if we go with the curb, the law is how we initiate force against people to stop doing wrong or doing
right. But none of that's relevant. What we're asking is whether or not relevant. The law is applicable.
Right. Because it's not a curb use. Okay. It's abolished.
Okay, so then that contradicts Jesus. Jesus says that he didn't come to abolish the law.
Right, because we use it in a different way. Now we use it in terms of a mirror. Okay, this is a useful thing in preaching, but there are a lot of preachers out there that abolish the use of the law in preaching as well.
No. I'm not talking about the use of the law. I'm talking about obeying the law. Do people obey the law?
That's not what Jesus said.
He literally did say he didn't come to abolish the law. To have the law means that it needs to be obeyed. That's the point of laws. Mocha, we lost your audio.
I'm sorry. I accidentally pressed the button. But let's go back to Matthew 5 again. It doesn't exactly say that.
It does.
If you go back down, what is it?
It says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill, which means he didn't come to abolish the law. It means it's not going anywhere. not until heaven and earth pass away, which is why he says, therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. That includes Paul. Paul is least in the kingdom of heaven because he's teaching people to not follow the commandments. It's just a straight contradiction.
He also says in other verses that only if you understand that the use of it has been abolished.
It has not.
Or if you say that, yeah, well,
No.
who's stoning adulterers?
The use of
John 8.
The use of the law is synonymous with the law being in existence. If you're not going to follow the law, if you're not going to use the law, then it's basically abolished. It's the same thing. Adding the word use is meaningless to this conversation.
No, it shows the paradox because it does exist and its use is changed.
No, it hasn't.
And that's what Paul is doing. He
law
says in
law
other
only has
verses
one use.
That's not true.
It's obedience. That's what laws are for.
They have a curb nature where you're telling people don't speed, and then they don't speed, or don't unalive. So they unalive, and then you.
That's right. The law to not speed is just that. Don't speed. That's it.
Okay, what if you had a police officer that never...
Our live just got restricted again on TikTok.
Why?
TikTok hates our live stream. This is the worst. Whatever.
Same reason I said?
It's because it doesn't realize... It thinks that this is unoriginal content because we're... I don't know, because like we don't have an actual camera on screen showing my face moving around. It's 4 different boxes.
This guy.
TikTok's the worst. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Mocha, I don't think you've actually helped your position here. All you're saying is that like the law still exists, but nobody has to use it. That's the same thing as abolish. You've described abolishing the law.
Okay. First of all, who is the law for? Who is the Torah for?
Well, initially it's for the Israelites, but in the end it's for everybody.
No.
Yep.
It doesn't say that.
It does.
It's always been for that people.
No,
okay?
it's for everybody who worships Yahweh. It's for both the foreigner and the native born.
Well, for them in the land, but that's not what happened
everybody
with Christianity. Christianity abolished the law in terms of punishment, according to it.
Not according to Jesus.
Well, look at Jeremiah 34. I will come to make a new covenant with you. New covenant.
That's Jeremiah 31, and he doesn't say anything about the laws going away.
Well, you have a new covenant. Those laws are not under that covenant.
He didn't say anything about the laws going away.
Yeah,
I mean, a covenant, just to be clear, a covenant isn't a law, right? A covenant is an agreement or a promise or something like that, right? It's
right.
Well, the covenant was to agree to abide by those laws and to abide all what's in that Torah.
The new covenant era includes the same laws. That's why Deuteronomy says that he's going to enable you to follow the laws that Moses is commanding you. That's why Isaiah 56 says, when the foreigners join themselves to the Lord, they'll be doing offerings and sacrifices.
Did they teach you that at your seminary?
My seminary doesn't teach this. This is not a theological viewpoint. Now, if you ask a Jew, then they would say, yeah, obviously that's what the Old Testament teaches. The Old Testament doesn't teach that the law was temporary or that it was going away or that it was just for the Israelites, although there's mixed views on whether or not non-Israelites should follow the law. Most Jews today believe that the Gentiles, even if they do become like worshipers of Yahweh, they shouldn't have to follow the law. But they've got mixed views about whether or not that's going to be true in like the final age to come. In the final age to come, a lot of them believe that it's going to be just like Ezekiel described. And the way Ezekiel described it, it's going to include the law.
When was the new covenant, or when is it, I should say?
Well, first of all, I mean, it depends on who you ask. If you ask a Jew, it hasn't happened yet. If you ask a Christian, they think it happened already with Jesus, but it couldn't have happened with Jesus because in the new covenant era, it includes all kinds of shit that never happened. It includes all people knowing who God is. It includes world peace. It includes Israel being restored to their land and being rescued from the hands of all their enemies. So, like, in my viewpoint, it just never happened. And it's never going to happen.
Well, so, I mean, okay. there's a lot there, of course, and we might not be able to unpack that here. But Jesus did say, and a lot of Christians don't, agree with what I'm about to say, so that makes it harder. But Jesus said, "This is the new covenant. This cup, the third cup of the Passover meal, is the New Testament in my blood, the new covenant." And so he's establishing what Jeremiah says in 31.
Well, yeah, and he's a liar and a fraud. I agree.
That's okay. So at least you're agreeing that that's what he's doing.
Well, yeah, but you don't need a theology degree for that. I learned that in the 5th grade. So the question is whether or not his words are true, and they're clearly not. And this doesn't solve the problem of the law going away. Jesus himself said that not a letter from the law is going to go away, and that you should teach people to obey the law. Paul did the exact opposite. Paul himself says that he's not even required to follow the law, being a Jew, which means it's a direct contradiction. If Jesus says that you should obey the law and teach others to obey the law, and then Paul comes along and says, don't follow the law, you don't need to follow the law, they're in direct contradiction to each other.
Well, Paul would be in direct contradiction to himself in other verses anyway.
Paul does contradict himself.
Let's do an example.
But the problem is that he's contradicting Jesus. Do you see like the problem that we're presenting here? Jesus and Paul don't agree on whether or not you should follow the law.
Okay, let me give you an example out of John 8. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
You're talking about the adulterous woman?
Yes, it's perfect.
It's not perfect because it doesn't explain the thing that you want it to explain. What it does...
it absolutely does.
No, it doesn't. It shows Jesus using the law against his enemies. In fact, Jesus operates within the law. He's not abrogating the law in John chapter 8. So what he's saying is that, listen, you want to stone this woman, but beware. If you follow the law of Moses and you stone this woman, then you're next. So he didn't say that you shouldn't follow the law. He just said, hey, just so you're aware, if you really want to follow the law, you're next in line.
I don't know about the you're next, but you're right. I think you're right, because most Christians get this wrong.
It's also not original to the gospel, right?
I know, but it illustrates my point.
Well, I mean, if Jesus didn't say it, then it's irrelevant. It doesn't exist in a single manuscript until the 5th century.
That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, what I'm saying is,
illustrates my point.
Is I don't have a good reason to believe that that episode of Jesus's life ever existed.
But the church is saying with this text what I'm saying, okay? And so we need to look at it closely.
Right, but if the text didn't happen, if it's fanciful fiction, if it's a story made up about Jesus that didn't actually happen, doesn't matter what the church says about it. Doesn't matter what you think about it.
I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but the point about it, if you look at it...
No, but I'm saying I don't believe it happened. That's what I'm saying. I don't believe it happened, which means I don't care what the church says about it.
Okay, what happened to the adulterous woman? Did they apply the law to her or not?
They wanted to apply the law to her, and Jesus persuaded them to not apply the law to her, only unless they were willing to apply it to themselves also.
Well, true. That's because he's applying the Torah, where it says no one can be involved in the crime that is punishing. Like, you can't be the one to throw the stone if you're involved in the crime.
That's not what he said.
Yes, he's quoting the Torah, or he's referring to the Torah, I should say.
But he didn't say anything you just said.
Bring it up.
He just says, "He who casts the first stone."
He says, "He is without sin," which is a reference to without participating in the adultery.
No,
cast the first stone.
Not even close. Nope.
Yes.
No, he says, "He who is without sin cast the first stone." He didn't say anything about the adultery. He didn't say anything about the sin that she committed.
This is a reference to how they practice law in the Torah.
It's okay. We know how they practice the law. The question is what Jesus is saying. He's saying, listen, if you also are without sin, go ahead, pick up the stone and cast it.
That's a classic modern day version of and used in preaching in all churches, and it's wrong.
No, it's right. No, you're wrong.
No. I know that's what you're saying. You're saying
Giga
if
Chad.
you can't judge this person, but he was judging
No,
her,
that's
right?
not what I'm saying at all. What he's
What are you
saying
saying?
is that if you apply the law of Moses to this woman and you stone her, you're next because you also have sin worthy of being stoned. That's why they turned away. That's the whole ploy that's being had in the story, is that if you want to be sticklers to the law of Moses, which is why they brought the woman to him in the first place, is to test him on whether or not he's willing to stick with the law of Moses, then guess what? If that's what you want, that's what you'll get. And you guys who are also just as sinful as this woman, you'll get stoned too. That's what he's doing here. That's all he's doing. And again, it's irrelevant. I don't care what your interpretation of the story is because I have no reason to believe that it's authentic to the gospel. So this is a meaningless conversation about
in
fan
saying what
fiction.
You just said you abolished the law. No, you just abolished the old law. You just
No, I
abolished
didn't.
the whole reason for having
Not even
laws.
close.
Because if everybody's sinful, you can't ever
It's like
punish. You can't
Mocha.
even
It's like
punish
you didn't hear
transgression.
anything I just
You can't even
said.
punish murder.
So Mocha,
I did.
you didn't
You're
hear
doing a
anything I
classical
just
movie.
said. John chapter 8, woman caught in adultery, I don't believe is authentic to the Gospel of John, which means it's meaningless. I don't care what your interpretation of it is. It doesn't mean anything to me because I don't think that the events in the story actually happened.
Do you think we punish crime in our country?
It's like he doesn't even listen.
Do we punish?
Do you
crime
think
in
that
our
that's a
country?
question that adults should ask?
So you're saying the theological teaching is we shouldn't punish crime
Not even
because
close.
we're all sinful.
Nope.
We're all sinful.
Not
Don't
even
punish
close.
crime.
Mocha,
I'm-
did
I'm-
you hear anything I just said, or did it go like in one ear, not the other? I don't believe in John chapter 8 being authentic to the Gospel of John. It doesn't matter what your interpretation is of John 8. It means nothing to me. It's not original to the story. It's fan fiction. It was written hundreds of years after the Gospel of John and added into it. It doesn't matter what you think about it.
Do you other guys understand what I'm saying?
We understand that you're
Yo,
spinning
I'm not
your
tracking
wheels.
this conversation at all.
Can I ask
don't
you,
like
Ian?
listen like the Bible scholarship, the biblical scholarship stuff goes way over my head. I don't know. I would feel the different arguments if I
Yeah,
were
Mocha.
I'm not making a
responding to
theological
you. That's
point.
just because I don't have like that sort of knowledge. But I don't know. Like I'll let the audience. I don't know. Like you'll just like defer to the audience, I guess.
Mocha,
Ian,
you're wasting your
do you
time.
think that,
It
can I
doesn't.
ask Ian,
It doesn't matter what you think about John 8.
it's an illustration of what you do with law.
It's not an illustration of anything because it's not original to the text. It doesn't matter. Mocha, I don't care what John 8 is about. It means nothing to me. Jesus could say biddly boobop in John chapter 8, and it means nothing to me because it's not original to the text. It was added hundreds of years later. I don't care what is in John chapter 8.
Well, you don't care what's in the whole Bible anyway.
Well,
I mean,
first of all, I think
you
it's
the
all
whole thing is
fiction,
wrong.
but that's irrelevant.
But things like our country with our laws, you don't think those are fictions, right?
Why do you ask silly questions?
Because I'm showing you.
Mocha,
how
do
to
you
use law.
do you think that I'm of the belief that laws don't exist in the real world? Why would you ask such a dumb question?
Well, there's laws and there's an existence and there is an enforcement, and you're not dividing those two truths.
I'm dividing nothing. You're the one trying to make a division. You're the one trying to say that somehow laws existing and laws being like doing what laws do are two different things. That's
Laws
silly
don't
to
do
me.
anything.
The question
People
is
enforce laws.
the question is, should you follow the law? And the reality is Jesus says something in direct contradiction to Paul. Jesus says, whoever teaches the law will be great in the kingdom of heaven, and whoever teaches people not to follow the law will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. And Paul says, don't fucking follow the law. That is a direct contradiction. Not a single thing that you've said right now since you've been up has anything to do with resolving that contradiction yet.
What happens if I murder somebody?
Hopefully you go to jail.
Well, you say hopefully. Why do you say hopefully?
because you're a
Let's-
danger to society, and I want you away from people where you can cause harm.
Well, it's like you're implying that there's not an automatic, response to that.
There isn't, right? People get away with
Exactly.
murder all the time. What?
Exactly.
What do you? How's it a
You're-
gotcha?
Ian gets it. Why
No,
don't you get it?
That's
Justin?
just what Justin said.
No, what
Mocha,
you're saying
I
is
think
that
you're
just
in a different plane of existence this morning. These are, I've talked to you before. These are by far your weakest arguments you've ever presented.
I'm not arguing. I'm showing this is what's going on.
I'm not saying you're arguing as a verb. I've said these arguments that you're bringing are not good arguments.
Well, I don't think you understand the difference between law and gospel, and that
I
is
do.
a problem with Christianity today.
Law and gospels are not the same thing. They have completely different meanings.
Let's see if I can use a different example then. Okay, there's this scene in Rome. Have you seen Rome, the miniseries on HBO?
Nope, I don't watch TV.
Well, I mean, the whole idea is that just because something breaks the law, you have to enforce it. That's a human activity.
I agree, which is why Paul is wrong. Paul says that the law and its consequences are done away with.
That's correct.
Which means he disagrees with Jesus. Jesus says that not a letter from the law is going to pass away. And he says, if you teach people to not follow the law, you will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, which means Paul is least in the kingdom of heaven.
He doesn't say
It's just
follow the
definitionally
law.
true.
The law exists, but it
All right,
has a different
I'll read it
use.
for you one more time because I'm sure you weren't listening the first time. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the
Relaxes.
same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So he's saying if you teach other people to not follow the commands, if that's what you're doing, if you're going out and saying don't follow these commandments, then you are least in the kingdom of heaven. That's exactly what Paul did. Paul went around and taught people not to follow the law, which means he's contradicting Jesus, or he's okay with being least in the kingdom of heaven.
You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder. Whoever murders will be liable to judgment.
It's like he can't actually address anything I said. You just bounced from one new topic to the other. Mocha, I don't think you're capable of having an actual conversation, because every time I say something, like you bring up a point and then I talk about the point you brought up and then you pivot to a new point without addressing what I actually said.
Well, it didn't say break,
That's-
it says relax.
That
I don't know
it
what
doesn't
version
say
you're
it
using.
doesn't say relax in my translation.
What are you using?
I'm using the NRSV UE.
I'm using the English Standard.
Well, you
So,
shouldn't.
Well, I mean, that's just because you don't like it at all.
It's because it's a biased translation.
Well, you still don't know why the lady wasn't stoned in John 8.
I do
think
know
that
why
it's
the lady
because-
wasn't stoned, and I also know that it's not original to the gospel. It doesn't matter. Your
it
interpretation
wasn't
of
because
John
Jesus
is
persuaded
absolutely
her.
meaningless. It means nothing to me.
Well, I didn't
If
get to my
the story
explanation. You
if
keep
the
cutting
story
me
didn't
off.
if the story didn't happen, Mocha, I don't care what your interpretation of the story is. Okay, so I think we spent
The lady wasn't
now
stoned because the Romans were there.
not even close to true. So I think we spent now
Absolutely
like
true.
25 or 30
Okay.
minutes on you like going in circles and not actually explaining away the contradiction between Paul and Jesus. And I think the people here watching are getting bored with it. Like I think they're starting to fall asleep and they're tired of the conversation. So the only thing I could say at this
Well, I
point is,
appreciate you
would
having
you
me
like
up,
to
so,
provide an
I'll-
argument for your God existing, or did you just come up to address the Paul Jesus contradiction?
Well, God exists because he created everything, and you can look at how amazing every cell in your body is.
Not even close.
But also, he prophesied things before they happened.
No, he
and
didn't.
on
Let's talk
time.
about the cells in the body. So your cells are extraordinarily inefficient, right? Like there's DNA in your mitochondria, but it's like coded completely differently than the DNA that's in your nucleus. So you literally have to undergo like conversions in order for these two DNAs to communicate, right? Like the fact that you have to replicate like billions of nucleotide pairs is the exact thing that leads to cancer. It's like the cell knows that it's not perfect, It literally has like a repair mechanism built into it structurally. And sometimes that repair mechanism for mutations messes up and causes mutations. Your cells are far from perfect.
I guess they're they're just garbage. Then I mean,
No, that's the false dichotomy.
I mean, you're looking at
They're pretty good. They could be better, but that's unexpected. They should be perfect if a perfect God designed them.
Oh, he didn't say he made him perfect. He made him good, and that's the Torah. That's the Torah. And I'm surprised you don't know that.
No, you
Wait,
said that they're perfect.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, right?
Yeah.
So your God is not a perfect engineer. He's just like a pretty good engineer. So one day Justin is gonna eat his lunch.
Yeah, you have some training to do, Justin.
Sorry.
I mean, they literally have videos of nano robots in your cell walking on wires. I mean, nobody can make that stuff.
Walking on
like, moving
wires.
stuff.
We don't have
Yeah,
wires.
I know
in our body.
I know what he's talking. I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, see, I'm not crazy, Justin.
You are crazy.
Yeah, it's
though.
well, it's just like there's like certain cellular components that do. Fuck, I don't even know what it's called. I don't have like the bio background for it. I don't know. Someone in my Discord, what's the name of that thing that has like the big thing that it's pulling and then it like steps back and forth?
Yeah, it's literally pulling cargo. They're little
Yeah, I'm
walking
sure.
trucks. I mean, how do you
yeah,
make
that's like
that?
super cool, right? It just could be better. Like the cell could be improved upon.
Yeah, so like you're basically giving like a sad version of the fine tuning argument, but the fine tuning argument to me is like silly because like you see these things that are really cool and you're like, oh my God, God must have did that. But then like when you see the stuff that's horrific, you're not looking at it saying, oh well, that obviously this can't be from God. Like natural disasters, the sun giving skin cancer, children being born with bone cancer. These are all things that we wouldn't expect from a God that like finely tuned the universe.
But there's been a change. Sin entered the world. I mean, you know that. You're a seminarian.
That
But
actually
then you've contradicted yourself.
Yeah,
you said
that
that the
debunks
evidence
it.
for God's existence. Yeah.
Right. So Mocha, you've debunked
because I have a car and you get a
hold on,
ding.
Mocha. You've debunked your own argument. You're saying that the evidence for God is the fine tuning, but when I point to the stuff that's not finely tuned, you say, well, it's not finely tuned because of X, Y, and Z, which means that it's not finely tuned, which means your first argument fails.
No, it is finely tuned. There's been damage.
So it's not finely
the whole
tuned.
universe has been damaged. It is finely tuned.
It's
A
not
car
finely
is finely
tuned.
tuned.
No.
So
You drive a
what?
car?
So I'm just curious. I don't know if anybody. You might have a good answer to this. I don't know. But like, so Eve eats the apple, right? When does her DNA become damaged?
Well, I mean,
Like, is it like she takes the bite and then all of her DNA like spontaneously changes, or is it like God finds out and then God changes their DNA as they're walking through the gates of the Garden of Eden, or like when does this happen?
well, there's been numerous changes to the universe, to the earth. God pulling away. You know, they died and within 1,000 years. I mean, there's.
But like you're making the very specific claim that like the cellular biology is changing its mechanism, right?
I'm saying you can't even see that the cellular biology is so amazing still, even after the fall of man, even after.
But my
creation
question
has
is
been
just like,
damaged.
when the fall of man happened, like when did the cellular biology change?
That's something I'm not exactly privy to. I mean, we could keep looking as scientists. You know, you could keep doing that job as a scientist and keep
Well,
looking,
what the scientists say is that evolution is true.
which they've never
Yeah,
seen.
that there
No one
wasn't
has
any
ever seen
abrupt
that.
change.
Yeah, and I think to me the problem that you have here is you're saying, listen, we've got these instances of non-fine tuning, and now here are the excuses for why the non-fine tuning exists. But I don't think the excuses are very plausible to me, because now you're positing that God's just like an asshole, like he's willing to let people suffer needlessly because somebody ate a fruit. Why does God need to make people suffer like in horrific earthquakes and tsunamis and volcano eruptions just because somebody ate a fruit?
Well, it's not just any fruit.
It doesn't matter what you think the fruit is. I'm asking, why is it
Okay, just sidestep
necessary?
the whole Genesis story.
I'm not sidestepping it. This is a direct response to what you're saying. You're saying because Adam and Eve sinned, God changed the planet. He changed everything from being very good to somehow not being very good. But he didn't have to do that. Did God have to create natural disasters?
I mean, that's a general statement, but I mean, like, the reason why he say flooded the earth, took away
Not
the
an answer to my
protective,
question. I
vapor
said, did he
canopy,
have to create natural disasters?
causes a lot of cancers.
Yeah, it's yes or no, Mocha. Did he have to create natural disasters?
I don't want to get involved in a theodicy.
It is.
Well,
you're
so I
you're
guess my
involved in it
question
now.
is like, how would you account for the fact that how would you account for the fact that like dinosaurs had cancer or something?
Well, we also have to account for the fact that dinosaurs got really big. I mean,
No,
how
we
did
don't.
they
Yeah,
go?
but like dinosaurs were big. Like that's
Yeah,
that's
we all
well,
like we
at
agree
least
on
some
not
that.
were.
now.
It's not relevant.
It is relevant because they're not now. There was a change.
It's as if there was like a
Yeah,
big
sure.
event that
It's been
happened
like
to the
it's been
dinosaurs.
like 70 million years.
Yeah, but we can't grow anything that big. The cube square law doesn't allow anything to grow that big.
Mocha,
all the
that's a
things that were
diversion.
big died,
We
right?
don't
Like
care
you
about that.
understand that the big stuff died.
Wait, also blue whales are bigger than any dinosaur that ever existed.
And why?
Why? Because they
It's gonna
are
like evolutionary
it's evolutionarily
reasons.
advantageous, presumably.
No, it's
Yeah.
because they're in the ocean with the high pressure. It can support a blue whale. Nothing grows that big on land.
Except the dinosaurs did grow that big.
Yeah, Mocha, do you think the
So
dinosaurs
why?
didn't
You're
exist?
begging the question. You're begging the
Because
question.
they grew that big because of evolutionary factors. Because
That's your
the
assumption.
environments that they existed in were able to support that, and there was evolutionarily advantageous reasons for them to be that size.
You're correct in saying.
And to
the
be clear,
environment-
elephants are bigger than most dinosaurs that ever existed. There are some dinosaurs that were bigger, like the famous ones, like sauropods and, T-Rexes and things like this. But like elephants are bigger than the vast majority of dinosaurs.
So Ian mentioned that the environment was the reason. I agree.
Yeah.
The environment changed. And
But
that's
it didn't change
described.
suddenly. This
No,
wasn't a sudden change.
I mean, it depends on your frame of reference, but I mean, I agree. I think it changed over a few hundred years. But the
Well, no, it
flood-
changed over millions of years, right?
Well, that's your assumption.
No,
Well,
I mean
that's just what all the evidence says.
One of the primary causes for why dinosaurs were able to get so big was, and this is a similar reason for why insects were able to be so big, was there was more oxygen in the atmosphere, and we can just measure oxygen levels over time, and
You're a
like they change
scientist,
very
right?
very slowly. Sorry,
You're a scientist, right?
I'm a physicist, yeah. So I'm not a paleontologist, so like this isn't my area, but like I read a little bit.
Okay, so a scientific study would be, let's see if we can make dinosaurs with more oxygen.
No.
If you can't do it, then that's not the reason.
Nope, that doesn't follow.
Well, that's what science is trying out things that work or don't work. It's an experiment, right?
So you would need a observation, a hypothesis, and then some sort of experiment that you can use to test a prediction of that hypothesis. That's the scientific process, right?
And you haven't done that when you say, oh, it's because of this that they grew so big. You haven't done it.
I actually think that there are studies describing insect growth in high oxygen environments. I can go see if I can find something on that.
Yeah, but I don't think any of this is actually important. It doesn't do anything for the discussion that we're having. I think like you brought up the dinosaur bit to get away from the theodicy. Theodicy is still kind of a problem.
Like the problem is, right, like just all of science is against you. Right, like I'm not gonna believe a book that gets science consistently wrong over science. Like
I want to ask a question, but I don't want to. Well, I don't want to belabor your hearers unless they want me to stay. Do they want me to stay?
I mean, we're
or-
talking. Let's
I mean, we're talking about all things, right? So it's kind of hard to not pivot from one thing to another. I know, Justin, you think I'm pivoting all the time, but we are talking about God who made all things, or your lack of belief of that. So, I mean, I apologize if I seem like I'm pivoting, but it's kind of the whole game of everything.
Dodging, yeah, that is the correct Christian game, yeah. So,
Well, it seems that way.
is God like the omni-God? Is he omnibenevolent, omnipotent, and omnipresent?
I, in general, agree with that.
So
Because
can like omnibenevolent deities, would it be consistent with that description that they would cause unnecessary suffering?
I don't know how to define unnecessary suffering to God.
yeah, just suffering that doesn't have like a higher good to it, right? Like a suffering where if it was removed, the goods that you lose out on would be goods that don't outweigh the suffering itself, like the badness of the suffering itself.
Seems like there's a lot of assumptions in that.
I'm just giving you a definition.
I mean, maybe so, but you still there's still assumptions there of
Like
what's
which ones?
good, like what's good, what's unnecessary. Like there's just a lot
Well,
of
I
assumptions.
gave you a definition of like unnecessary suffering, right? It's going to be an internal critique. Just like you need to cite something that on your view would be good that outweighs the badness of like a given event.
Where do you get good and bad?
It's an internal critique. We're using your definitions.
Well, that's true. I claim that
Whatever
good and
you
bad
think
are
it
a theological
is.
thing. But for someone that doesn't believe in God,
Yeah,
there's
so
no
it's
good
wait.
bad.
So what we're doing is an internal critique. We don't need to provide a definition because we're just working with yours.
Well, you don't have one.
Well, I do have one, but it's an
For
internal
you.
critique, and I'm not going to let you pivot, right? Like you're pivoting away from the problem of evil because you know you're going to get folded on it.
I'm acknowledging that evil only exists because there's God.
Oh, okay, wait.
Oh,
so
shit. We
if-
agree on that.
If God is all good, all powerful, all knowing, why would He allow like horrific suffering from like natural disasters, for example?
Well, I mean, humanity departed from His command to obey the law,
So?
and so now this is the judgment.
And how would you account for the fact that earthquakes existed before humans did?
Oh, I thought you were internally critiquing my worldview.
Yeah.
You're
So
going
do you
back
just
to
like deny
yours.
science? Wait, and does science exist under your worldview, or do you deny
Oh
science?
yeah, science is a
Wait.
practice of observing what God has already
Do
done.
you think that the Earth is only 6,000 years old?
Will that help the conversation?
Well, we've been assuming that you agree that like the Earth is old and evolution is real. But if you're
Oh.
just saying earthquakes just didn't happen before humans because the
Oh.
Earth is only 6,000 years old, then that would be very informative to know your position on this.
Oh, you guys all thought that I thought that the Earth was a millions of years old thing.
Well, I mean, I assume most people are like reasonable in that regard. So
Oh, sure. Well, then you just like lose to the easy, like the super easy slam dunk external critique, which is that you're wrong about that. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. That's a scientific fact.
Science can't see that, but okay.
Yeah, it
Science can
right?
measure
You
that.
Yeah,
No, it
you can
cannot.
derive that just from
Sure it can.
radioactive decay.
That's based on assumptions about
Assumptions of
potential
like
quantities.
half-lives, right?
No, that's all based on assumptions. You weren't there. Science depends on you making the initial observation.
Sorry, were you there at the Garden of Eden?
I know.
Otherwise,
that.
it's just based on assumptions.
Yeah,
right?
every
I know
time
that.
every time your argument relies on you can't know it because you weren't there, it ruins your position too.
True.
No, but I know people who were there.
Who?
In the
You know
garden,
people who were at the Garden of Eden?
He's gonna say God. Cringe.
Exactly. God, Jesus.
you don't know
So you've
that.
heard God talk. You've heard God talk.
You're internally critiquing. That's the reason internally.
No,
that I'm
this is an
saying.
external critique now.
Oh, you
Yeah.
shifted. Oh, you
Yeah,
pivoted.
well, yeah. If you reject
yeah,
science,
well-
like there's a super easy external critique.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Namely,
I
like,
thought you were
you know,
internally critiquing.
Oh yeah, but then you made like a really dumb theodicy that like loses instantly to an external critique. So
So does God talk to you? Want to hear the answer to this?
I mean, God talks to us through means mostly.
Does he talk to you?
I mean, not,
Actually, even if you do know
Immediately.
somebody who says that they were there 6,000 years ago, how do you know that they're telling the truth?
because I actually, if you look at my videos, I show you how we scientifically.
We're not going to watch
internally
your
critique.
videos.
Okay, that's fine, Justin. You don't have to, but the other guys might care.
No one's watching your videos.
Well, we scientifically examined the dating of the chronology of the Bible and found that it is internally reliable.
No, you
wait, I'm
didn't.
sorry. Wait,
so-
do dating methods work or do they not? I'm confused.
Which dating methods?
With the
Uranium
ones that you
dating.
appeal to, like, do you think
Potassium argon dating.
radioactive decay, like which radioactive dating methods are valid and which ones aren't?
I think that I mean, if we're talking like carbon dating, it has some use.
Is it accurate?
Why? Why does it have some use?
True.
Because the flood changed that for beyond that point. It changed the ability.
Wait a minute,
to,
hold on. What? How did the flood change the radioactive decay rate of, say, uranium or potassium or carbon, for that matter? How did the flood change that?
Carbon is absorbed by organisms from the atmosphere at a certain rate, but if it's being blocked from the atmosphere by the vapor shield in Genesis 1:2, then it's going to look older than it is.
Okay, but how does that change the decay rate
It
of
doesn't,
carbon,
it
of
just changes
uranium,
the
of
amount.
potassium? Okay, so but it doesn't change anything about potassium or uranium.
Well, I'm not. That's a little bit beyond my ability to talk about that.
Okay.
So
well,
I would make a suggestion here, because no young Earth creationists ever know anything about uranium, and they just say, "Oh well, I don't know much about that. I should go look into it." Go look into it because it'll destroy your worldview.
I understand what it is, but we weren't there. Okay.
We weren't there for any of this.
Neither were you.
It's irrelevant.
That's not a good argument. Saying you weren't there nullifies your position as well. It's never going to
yeah.
win.
Well, the problem is that I have a text, okay, that foretells the future.
It doesn't.
I have texts. I have texts too that foretell the future. They're called physics textbooks,
Shit. Praise physics.
and they're more reliable.
Wait, Blitz, are you a prophet? Holy shit.
Turns out, yeah.
Prophet Blitz. All right.
Okay, tell me what's going to happen in like 1,000 years in Russia.
Yeah,
you know?
give me the so the funny thing is if you asked me where will Mercury be in 1,000 years, I could give you an answer. I would
Yeah,
have to run
and-
the numbers, but I could give you an answer.
No, that's wonderful. Those things are there for the proof of
That's
the Bible.
predicting the future, right?
Yeah, but they're there for the Bible. Yes.
Mercury.
Why?
Wait, hold on. What shape is the Earth?
It's whatever oblate, whatever spheroid. You know, it's a sphere.
Okay, just checking.
Okay,
yeah,
so
good
you don't
question.
believe in the Bible. Okay, cool.
The Bible says that God made the world in 6 days. On the fourth day, the sun, moon, and stars were created, and that is a specific day, and I can show you what that is.
I
it's
agree.
amazing.
It was a specific day, which is why we know it's bullshit.
But when you look at the sky on that day, the planets are in like alignment, two hands of a clock. They're separated according to the gas giants and the terrestrial planets. Terrestrial planets, the Earth, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Ceres. I found that myself. 1 degree on the fourth day after creation started. It was like March 22nd, 4001 BCE. Okay. From that point on, our computer calendars track time through the Bible all the way to the day.
There's some crazy
And it
pseudoscience.
No, it's science.
No, it's not.
Real science. Studying time using astronomy is real science.
Yeah, we know how time works. We're saying that
Yeah.
relating it to biblical creation event is fantasy.
Well, we found that because of the chronology.
No, you didn't.
That's exactly what
You think that
happened.
astronomers rely on the chronology?
Listen, my mentor asked Owen Gingerich at Harvard to look at that date and see if there was something there. He threw the paper away because he thought, that's ridiculous. Then he got it out again, and he's like, oh my gosh, there really is.
I forgot. Yeah, you're the guy that has
Why
a mentor that has a mentor that's like really smart. I forgot about
one
that.
mentor.
It's been a while since you brought that point up.
But like, I mean, let's grant for a moment that the stars were in a special alignment, or the planets were in a special alignment 6,000 years ago. They also would have been in a special alignment 12,000 years ago, or whatever. You could run through the math, and you would find that special alignment all of the time. It's periodic. That's the whole point.
Not as a total whole. I mean, they're not like.
What do you mean?
ratios of
Yes,
each other,
the solar system has periodic behavior.
but they're not
That's-
like equal ratios. Like the moon is 29.5305, days, but that's not equal to this.
So you will always, in fact, you could always find if you look over long enough timescales, you can always find arrangements that are more closely aligned than the one that you found 6,000 years ago.
But this one was given to us by the chronology. Okay.
Okay.
And all the dates in the Bible are given to us, so we can track them to the day. Okay. And
No, you
these are
can't.
given. Why do you say that?
Because the
Someone
manuscripts
else-
of the Bible don't even agree on how many years are there. If you compare the Hebrew manuscripts and the Greek manuscripts, they can't even agree on like the age of the patriarchs.
You're correct.
We have no
The-
idea what was in the original text. The text we have is written many hundreds of years after the people actually lived. In fact, thousands of years if you're referring to like the original genealogies of Genesis chapter 5. So yeah, why would I
Okay,
trust
you're
a text that
correct
came
in saying-
thousands of years later? Why were they smelting copper?
Okay,
Or
you're correct in saying that.
how are they smelting iron before the Iron Age?
I'm trying to agree with you here for a second.
Oh shit!
The New Testament was written with the Septuagint, which was added 100 years to a lot of the patriarchs. You're correct. Okay? The Masoretic the oldest text we have in the Masoretic is 1,000 years old, and the Septuagint is much older, right?
No, the
It doesn't matter,
The
though,
Dead Sea
because we-
Scrolls are about 65% like Proto-Masoretic.
Okay, so with science, we can examine the information of any text
Mm-hmm.
and find out what it has to say. So
Yep.
we can cut through all that bullshit that you just said.
I know, which is why we know that the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the oldest Hebrew manuscripts, are about 65% Proto-Masoretic, only about 5% in agreement with the Septuagint.
Well, the Masoretic is correct. We found that it's correct.
Well, it's
in the
not
dates.
correct in all instances. For
Show me.
example, the Masoretic text got Deuteronomy 32:8 wrong.
Is that a date?
No, it's a verse.
Okay, well, I'm interested in the only scientific thing you can do with the text itself is the dating.
No, you
Is
can't.
the- is
You
the
can't even do that
chronology.
because again, we don't know what dates were in the original text. We have no idea what was in the original text.
Also, sorry, I'm just curious. How do you know when Jesus was born?
Because Clement of Alexandria in the 2nd century gives us a date, and there's other. I could pull my text out on.
Yeah, but how do we know that that's like the correct date?
Do you want to know the date?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's
correct?
not mentioned in the Bible, right? So I don't know why we would trust any external source.
Well, does it have to be the Bible only?
Well, presumably you're saying that this is a date that we're getting from the Bible, right?
No, the Bible doesn't explicitly say exactly when Jesus was born.
So we have to rely on somebody who lived 150 years later to figure out when Jesus was born?
Well, there's a lot of references to his birth. So we can analyze that using a computer calendar, using astronomy, using testimony from various, church fathers.
How would the computer calendar tell you what month he was born in?
Let me pull my papers, unless you don't really want to hear this.
I mean, I asked you for an answer. I'm hoping for an answer.
Okay, hold on. I have to reach over here. Hold on.
Seems odd that it would be in the coldest part of the year, and then they're just going to wrap him up and put him in a manger. You know that this is an outdoor birth, right? Seems like something you would do during the warm months.
Right, it was in May. Yeah. Okay, so
So Jesus was born in May?
Yeah, May 14th, 6 BC.
Oh shit, so you don't believe he was born in December?
No, that was a date that was given by the church just to tie his circumcision to a Roman New Year. So it's 8 days from December 25th till New Year's. I mean, that's just all that is. But
so would you say that your entire worldview would collapse if it weren't the case that all of the planets and the planets were aligned in a particularly nice way on a particular date 6,000 years ago?
I mean, I believe that everything hangs together by the word of God, but so I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
Well, I mean, look, because I imagine that the actual dates that you determine are not so rigid. And so I imagine that with the correct interpretive lens, one could figure out that actually it was some day like 3 weeks later or something like that. And so my question is just, what would happen if you found out that the actual true date, because Jesus was actually truly born at some point, like he was a real person, what would you do if, how would it affect your beliefs if Jesus was actually born in, I don't know, June?
Well, obviously even the church, the Gospels don't put a lot of emphasis on his birth. They put emphasis on his death. So
But it's required for your beliefs regarding the creation date, right?
Well, that's because we're given the years. We're given a Jewish use of time with the lunar solar calendar and the dates that are actually explicitly given in the text.
Lunar calendar. The Jews had a lunar calendar.
Lunar solar.
No.
The Muslims use a purely lunar calendar.
The Jews have a lunar calendar. They took it from the Babylonians.
Yeah, and they insert a month to keep it up with the solar every 2 or 3 years.
No.
That is a
tell
thing,
the
Justin.
Jews they don't do that.
That is a thing. There's a leap month inserted every...
No. Modern Jewish timekeeping is different than what was happening in the Bible. They weren't inserting months in the biblical time period.
You guys agree with that?
I have no idea.
Oh, I don't know about the biblical Hebrew calendar. I'm just talking about the modern one.
Yeah.
They have to do that today because they know that the lunar calendar is deficient. They weren't doing that back then.
No, they were.
No, they weren't.
And Moses even says.
Wait, how do we know?
Because
how do we know what they were doing?
Because he says if you burn the barley and it's not time, then you have another month. I mean that's just what they've always been doing. That's why Jews matter in this whole conversation. But
I don't think they actually do matter because I don't think that their God is real because their God says all kinds of stuff that's not true. Sorry, Blitz.
Can I screen share something else on here? I don't want to. How do I do this?
I don't think
I've never used this.
I don't know if it's possible for you to really do a coherent screen share with the way the system is set up.
We can see the screen and TikTok can see the screen. So,
Okay, hold on. Let me.
Whatever you're doing now, because we can see the verse or whatever.
Okay. gotta bring up the DOS program. Hold on,
I'm
guys.
sorry, DOS.
Yeah, it's still valid. They still use a lot of these programs.
Who's they?
Anybody using computers,
Them.
just you
Triple
guys might appreciate
parentheses.
this. I don't know, or you'll mock it. All right. CD. I have to type it in. Hold on. Desktop.
I mean, it's just like, while you're doing that, it's just like so interesting that you go through all of this effort to like try to make sense of like the biblical dates, and you're like, aha, see, check, we can use science to check that date is actually special because the planets are in alignment. But then we say, oh yeah, and you can also use science to figure out that, you know, uranium decays at a certain rate, and we can see the rocks filled with lead and uranium, and therefore we can figure out how old the rock is. You're like, nah, but that's science, that's not okay.
Because there's
like, how do you know that the Newtonian laws of gravitation that you used to determine where the planets were at that time applied back then? How do you know that the flood didn't change that?
Well, I mean, we can keep going in that conversation, but let me show you this. How do I get rid of that? How do I change the screen share on here?
I have no
I
idea.
have no idea.
While you're figuring that out, hey, we currently have nobody in the queue after this guy. So if you're interested in debating us, if you're watching this, while you're smashing that like button, dashing that like button against the rocks, hitting that subscribe button, doing all that good stuff, leaving that follow, you know, putting to the sword that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. Make sure you're also welcome.
Sparing no children.
Definitely dash the like button against the stone.
Sparing no comment section or comment from the comment section while you're doing all of that. If you want to come debate us, the link is tinyurl.com/uaguest.
And it just takes you to Video Ninja, by the way. This isn't like some phishing scheme.
Right, yeah, you
There
don't
we
have to
go.
sign up for anything.
Can you see that?
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
you
we
can see it.
can.
No,
That's amazing.
It's a legit DOS
I
prompt.
love this.
Okay, now look at this, guys. Look. Okay, I can do the calendar conversions. Look at this. 4, 5, 30. Okay.
Oh, it's kind of blurry.
I can see it just fine.
Oh shit.
Okay, now show us the planets lining up.
Well, this is a calendar converter. It doesn't have the astronomy program in it. But you can see at the top, you have Nisan 15. This is
Is that one on a
It's
different floppy
Nissan.
disk?
This is Nisan 15,
It's
Passover.
Nissan.
In the corrected chronology, 4030. It's a Friday. And you look at the Egyptian sliding. You see that right there? Farmuthi
I don't know what an
25.
Egyptian
the
sliding is.
Egyptian what?
There's 2 calendars that the Egyptian used.
Keep going,
Okay.
I'm listening. What about the Egyptian
they-
calendar?
They used them over top of each other to tell them how far they were from the epic. They had 5 epics still to the day. It's hard to explain right now, but I want you to just take notice that Farmuthi 25 was what Clement of Alexandria said that he died on. So the Egyptian sliding is different from the Passover date of the Hebrews, so you have a cross-reference.
Well, we know
So-
when he died. The question is when he was born.
When did he die?
Well, we don't know when he died. It was either 9 in the morning or noon, right?
Well, yeah, but it's the either the eve of Passover or Passover. But that's altogether different than when he was born.
But see, this is more direct because Passover is always on a full moon. That's astronomical. Okay, so that's exact. That's science.
Well, Passover starts on the 14th of Nisan, and it is on the new moon. You're correct about that.
Full moon.
Well, yeah, the new moon. So the question,
That's different.
no, it's not. So the question
New moon is no moon.
no, wrong. So the first new moon.
So Passover is on a full moon.
Yeah,
See, Justin, listen to your friends.
which is the new moon.
Wait, no, the full moon and the new moon are different.
I disagree. Sorry, Blitz.
The new moon is when there's no moon. That's what a new moon is.
Have
A
you
full
read
moon is when there's the full moon.
Have you read Exodus?
No, I'm just referring to like the astronomical names.
Okay.
So like a full moon is when you can see the whole thing, and a new moon is when you can't see any of it.
Right. I
And
mean,
Passover always occurs when you can see the whole thing.
exactly. Yes, when you have a new moon.
Okay. It's not a new moon. It's a new full moon.
I'm aware, yes.
Okay.
The point is the months always started when there's a first sliver of the moon. Okay. And the full moon is when you see the whole thing in the middle of the month.
But how does this prove that gravity worked the same way prior to the flood?
I'm assuming that gravity worked the same way before the flood.
So, and I'm assuming that uranium lead dating worked the same way before the flood.
Well, I mean, those are two different things.
Are they?
But what's
Why?
more
Wait,
important-
what justifies the distinction? What's the evidence that it worked, that uranium and lead worked differently before the flood? What's the evidence for that?
Well, let's say that everything was created in a day, right? So maybe some chaotic event happened that gives you the arrangement of these, uranium, thorium, lead, compositions. I don't know how that works. That's something to
We'll explain it
investigate.
to you how it works. So zircon crystals form with 0 lead in them. There's no lead when a zircon crystal is forming. What there is, however, is uranium. All of the lead comes from decay of uranium. So if there is lead in a zircon crystal, it is from radioactive decay of the uranium, which means that by just using half-lives, we can figure out the ratio of uranium to the ratio of lead, and then we can calculate on that alone exactly how old a zircon crystal is.
Well, I appreciate that. That's probably one of the strongest arguments you have.
To be clear, creationists agree that this is the strongest argument for an old Earth. And funnily enough, this was the piece of evidence that put the date of the Earth at 4.5 billion years ago, or the age of the Earth is at 4.5 billion years old. So the strongest argument for an old Earth is literally the evidence that the Earth is old.
So if that.
By the way, if you could close out of the date thing, because it's eating up the whole.
Okay. Well. Okay.
Yeah, I can
Or
barely see
close out
Dr.
the
Blitz.
screen share.
Make him bigger.
What do I need to do here?
Just close out of the screen share if you can. Or Justin, I don't know if you can adjust it.
Yeah, I'm
but-
trying to figure out how
Would
to
that
do
do
that
it?
myself.
Well, are you still screen sharing?
Is that? Did I stop
Okay, there we
that?
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're better.
Okay, but so you guys can see at least what I'm saying is that we can track these dates. Okay?
Right, but
because
none of those dates were related to Jesus' birth period, is what I'm saying.
that's a little bit, that takes more doing, and I don't think that.
That's what you're trying to do, though.
Okay, so the same guy, Clement of Alexandria, 2nd century, had access to dates in Egypt because he was there, and that's where they went. And he also gives a Pacom 25 date.
Right, but Mocha, I want to make sure we're very clear on this. Not a single word of the Bible can be pinned down to a particular date in terms of Jesus' birth. It doesn't say anything about when he was born.
True.
Right, so everything you say about when he was born is just somehow trying to take your best guess.
No, this is what we're doing is taking other people's testimony and examining it.
But
with
there's no
science.
testimony about his birth.
Not in the Bible.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
there's some
the
things,
Bible
but they're-
doesn't say anything about when he was born. It just says that he was born while Herod was still alive.
That's important.
Yeah,
Okay,
but it's
Herod
not a
died in 4
month.
BC.
It's not a month.
No, I know.
Right. So
Okay?
well,
I'm
the
telling
question
you
is,
the process of how we come to understand what we know.
I think we all know how knowledge is gained. So the question that you were trying to come up with, which is when Jesus was actually born, meaning I don't know, a month, a day, a week, something precise, not a year. I think we can all agree that we can trace back the year he was born. I don't think that's all that important. But listen, Mocha, we've been talking
Clement
for a
of Alexandria
while.
says Pacom 25. It's an Egyptian date, specific date.
Yeah, but we don't know that Jesus was born
we've been
on
going in
that
circles
day.
for a while.
We have
Yeah.
not been going in circles.
Yeah, we've definitely been going in circles. All right.
All right.
We've been talking for a while. Appreciate you coming on up. Great conversation. We'll move on to the next one. But thank you so much for
Thank you,
coming
guys.
up.
Thank you.
Cheers. Well, there you go. A lot of talking points in a lot of circles, but good time either way. Johannes, thank you for the super chat. Johannes says, TikTok knows they repeat the same tired arguments. Actually, you're right, Johannes. I think that's one of the things that makes some of these conversations difficult is because there's no new arguments being had. it's just the rehashing of all the same arguments, and then it gets followed up with incredulity, like they can't believe that we don't find their arguments convincing, even though we've heard it 4,000 times. And rock hard for Doug. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat.
Yeah,
Big W, Doug.
I agree with this.
Right? Isn't that like they give the argument?
That's why philosophy is important.
Yeah. Well, philosophy really is important.
If only because I feel like there's like so much like philosophical literature on like whether or not God exists, and there's like so many novel arguments, so many arguments that I've literally just never heard before run on TikTok. So many like interesting versions of old arguments that put like a new spin on it that, may or may not make the argument like more plausible or like attempt to fix like old problems with the argument. And unfortunately, like Christians are just reading like bad apologetics books.
That's actually a really good point. When it comes to bringing new arguments to the debate scene, the philosophical arguments are the ones that are trying to bring new stuff. When it comes to like just the typical like theistic apologetics for like the biblical God, there's nothing new ever presented. We've all heard it.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah.
But Doug says, I'm watching a lecture series from Rabbi Tovia Singer on Isaiah, and these concepts of the future temple sacrifices are eye-opening for a former Christian like me. Rockhard, he's a great resource. I really like Rabbi Tovia Singer, and he and I agree. Like the vision of the like the Messianic age within the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures includes everybody giving offerings and sacrifices. It's just part of the system of worship, and Christians don't know this because they haven't read the Hebrew Scriptures. And Johannes, again with a super chat, thank you, says, let me tell you what Jesus meant to say. That's basically what they're attempting. And Doug, again, thank you for the super chat, says also didn't mean all caps for rabbi. I was wondering why you capitalized rabbi in all caps. I thought maybe you were just excited that he was a rabbi, but I get it. I get it. Big W for the clarification. And Nectu, thank you for the super chat, says, I like my theists. Well done, Justin. With a side of cope and glass of tears to drink. Praise Doug. Well, I think that's typically how these conversations end up, is a lot of coping and a lot of like denial of reality. But what are you going to do? And Chris McCarthy, thank you so much for the super chat, says, first known earthquake was 3 billion years ago in South Africa, long before humans ate fruits. Actually, that's a really good point. I haven't talked about this much. It's been a long time, but we've got a history of earthquakes and volcanoes going way back in history, long before the fall. It's weird that people would blame all that on the fall. They would just say, well, science is wrong. Science got it wrong, right?
Yeah.
And Jim Nasty, thank you for the super
well,
chat.
so that's been like there are exactly two responses that I've gotten from running like problems of natural evils. So it's very usual that people will say the fall, but then when you point out like the evidence, they'll either say the science is wrong, or they'll shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know.
Right.
And I think saying I don't know is fair enough, right? It gives you something to think about. But then like denying science, like I don't know, like if my worldview ever leads me to deny science, I think I just have to reevaluate it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know is perfectly acceptable, but it's a scary thing to say, because people feel like when you say I don't know, they assume that you're admitting that you're unintelligent, but that's not the case. Sometimes you just don't know something.
Yeah, it's like the presuppositionalists that have like just poisoned the discourse into like, oh, you don't know something. There's something you don't know. You're not sure of something. You can't explain. You can't solve this extremely difficult problem in philosophy. I guess that means that you don't know 1 + 1 = 2.
Oh man,
it just doesn't follow.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and then if there's something you ever don't know, then by definition your worldview collapses and their worldview is true.
Yeah. Therefore, Yahweh, the Bronze Age deity, is true.
It certainly follows. Jim Nasty, thank you for the super chat. Jim says, God talks to me through my holy back door until I bequeath to him my dirty, dirty sins. That sounds like a God I can get behind. He likes it rough, and that's okay. And Johannes Brahms again says, science is only right when it confirms my BS. That's basically how believers treat science. Like, they love science when it confirms their viewpoint, when it denies their viewpoint, then science is always wrong. And, if you would just trust me, bro, you would know that. But we got a couple people waiting to get in. It looks like we've got Wakanda God waiting to get in. Dr. Blitz must be using the restroom, so we're going to get the conversation started, and I'm sure he'll be able to catch up as swift as he is. How you doing, Wakanda? Wakanda?
Are you there?
Wakanda, it says
You're on
that
mute.
your microphone's muted, yeah. Wakanda? The microphone's no longer muted, but we can't hear Wakanda. Maybe they don't have
I
a
think the
microphone.
art is very cool. It's pretty cool art.
Right? Some dope artwork.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're actually with us. Wakanda? Hello? Hola? ¿Cómo está? Auf Wiedersehen? Nothing? Okay. Well, guess we'll move on to the next one. Come back, Wakanda, if you get your technology figured out. We'd love to talk to you. Until then, we've got Christian in the box. How you doing, Christian?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for asking. Christian, are you at least 18, and are you a believer in some kind of a God?
I am, and I'm Catholic.
Cool.
Cool.
And what would be the best argument or evidence for why the Catholic God is real?
For me, it comes down to science seems to complement the existence of God. I know that kind of goes against a lot of what you guys are saying I was waiting in the room, but I have a really hard time believing that something can come from nothing.
We don't.
Yeah, we
believe
do
that.
too.
Okay, well,
We also have a
that's-
hard time believing that, which is why we don't.
Okay, well, that's kind of how I've understood the Big Bang Theory, and I guess I'm incorrect in that belief, so maybe
So,
you guys could help me through that.
there's like actually, Blitz would be the right person to talk to about
I
this.
need context. I just got back.
Oh, so do you think something comes from nothing, Dr. Blitz? And if so, isn't something coming from nothing the correct characterization of the Big Bang Theory?
Maybe and no. I mean, we could just talk about the Big Bang Theory. So the statement about so back in the I'll just give you a brief history here. Back in the 50s, this idea that the universe was expanding was finally taking hold, and people were like, well, if it's expanding now, what does that mean about the past? And there was an idea that maybe it's just always expanding, but it's always been infinite, but that didn't really work. And then in '69, they found that indeed the universe hasn't always been expanding. The observable universe was smaller in the past. And what this means is that, yes, in the distant past, about 13.8 billion years ago, the universe was very, very small and very, very hot. And prior to like the 1980s or so, most people took this to mean that, yes, the universe actually began. But then in the 80s, Steinhardt or Paul Steinhardt and Alan Guth and one other person whose name I can't remember, they proposed inflation, which quickly led to this notion of eternal inflation, which basically kind of did away with this whole notion of the universe having a beginning. They're like, well, our Big Bang was just like one small thing in a much broader universe that has a whole bunch of Big Bangs always happening for eternity in both directions. And then from there, after like the mid 80s or so, when inflation came about, people really haven't thought about the Big Bang as a genuine beginning. We still don't know what the deal is. We still don't know if the Big Bang was the beginning, or if it wasn't the beginning, or or what caused the Big Bang, all of these things. But that's just like, we realize that just because the observable universe is expanding, that doesn't really imply anything about the actual origins of the universe, if it has one. And so now there's just a whole bunch of ideas. Nobody really knows. There's a whole bunch of competing ideas. Most of the ideas that I've seen kind of lend themselves towards an infinite past of one kind or another. There are a few that have a finite past that still kind of make sense, but yeah, it's really kind of up in the air.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes more sense. Okay, I guess another argument for God's existence I would have is the the argument that, like, we generally desire to do good, and that's kind of why we have, these terms that describe people who don't, like sociopaths, psychopaths, things like that. And
I think we
I
agree
don't
actually
know.
on that.
Yeah, so my argument is that our desire to do good kind of is consistent with the Christian notion that we are made in God's image, and assuming that God is good. That that is the argument for God's existence. And I see God as good because I see, and I was kind of arguing this in the chat before I joined, these things that are perceived as clearly unavoidable or unnecessary disasters, that there is often, not always, but there is often a greater good that can come from that, whether that be bringing people closer to God, but if there isn't, then there is the good that we
You mean like the natural disasters?
yeah, with the natural
That
disasters.
seems obscene. That seems
Yeah.
like obviously false.
Because for example, the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, about 200,000 people died, even more were injured. But Haiti's already 97% Christian.
Oh.
It's like it got the wrong country.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Well, I guess the other view, assuming God's existence, is that, I know you talked about this earlier, but is that the Garden of Eden, and we were made to be more like have a perfect world that doesn't have these things, but then we have had the entering of sin into the world, and then because of that, we are expelled from the Garden of Eden, and we have to deal with these struggles, and that's yeah.
But then you just have to explain why is it the case that we've had earthquakes on the earth for literal millions of years prior to humans existing?
Yeah, and I would say that they were there, but that they weren't. That the Garden of Eden was a special place that was shielded from those disasters.
But that means that sin didn't cause the earthquakes.
Yeah, I would say that sin. The earthquakes are there, but sin did away with the protective barrier that we had from them.
Well,
and then
why would God make an earth with earthquakes to begin with?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Seems like an unnecessary component.
Yeah. And that's fair enough to say that you don't know. I think that this is probably one of the hardest problems for Christians to try to solve. But I think it's like a decisive point against Christianity. It's just really unexpected that the earth is so evil to us, and has been for like millions of years.
Yeah. Yeah, shit. Okay, well.
Yeah, I would recommend one book on this because I think this is kind of a deep topic, and I think it's an important topic, and I don't think you need to know a lot of theology to get through it. But there was a book that opened my eyes on the topic called God's Problem. It was written, I'm sure you might cringe at the name, it was written by Bart Ehrman a long time ago. And when I started reading it, I was of the opinion, like most Christians, like, well, free will is the reason for why bad things happen. But he lays out a pretty good theodicy in that book that I think most people can grasp. And I think if you give it a read, it won't take very long. You'll kind of understand our position a little better, which is that there's no good reason for natural disasters and cancers and things like that if you believe in a God that is like loving and good.
Okay. Yeah, I made a note of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll have to give this a read. This looks good.
Yeah.
Um.
But listen, Christian, it sounds like we put a lot on your mind. We don't
yeah.
want to tax you too much, but come chat with us again, okay?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, buddy. Well, Christian's a nice guy. Sounds like he's working through some things, and I think we've all been there, right?
Absolutely. You want to hear something funny? Not funny, but a little bit sad. About Problem of Evil. and might make the strength of the problem of evil argument even stronger. So there's a species of fish called the devil's hole pupfish.
I'm sorry, the
I don't know if
devil's
you guys-
what?
The devil's hole pupfish.
I was told
That's
the
literally what
devil's
it's
hole
called.
was something else.
So the devil's hole is a geothermal vent, or not geothermal vent, it's a geothermal pool in a limestone cavern in Nevada. It's 40 acres. It's an underground pool. And in that pool is the only place that the devil's horn pupfish exists. The entire species lives in that 40-acre pool. Now, an earthquake, if it happened, or any natural disaster that buried it, would kill the entire species. Completely do away with it. And that hole has existed for millions of years. The devil's horn pupfish plausibly has existed, predates humans, in that hole. So the question is why would God put such an entire species of animal in a place where they are so vulnerable to the natural occurrences of the earth?
I think if I were a Christian arguing against this, I'd probably say something about like maybe like soul building. Maybe like the response that they want to go for is like, you know, it's like good practice, like taking care of things, being like good steward. But I do think like I agree that's really weird. That certainly seems strange. I don't know why God would do that.
Like it seems very specific, and it seems like particularly hateful on a species-wide level to put them in such a vulnerable position.
There seems to be a lot of useless species too, like where we only find them in one specific little location and they don't really interact with other animal species. They don't really seem to be like necessary for the overall environment to exist. It kind of seems like there's a couple animal species that don't really need to exist, which would be weird if God had created them and then was like, well, I don't really need you to be here. You're just kind of, you look kind of cool, you know, every once in a while, you know? It's like the unnecessary DNA argument. We shouldn't find unnecessary elements in the world. But we've got a couple super chats. Johannes comes in with another super chat. Right? I mean, just like we shouldn't find unnecessary DNA in our body, we shouldn't find things in nature that serve no purpose.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, I think like what would be expected is that everything that exists for like God's purpose. So presumably there should be like a purpose that corresponds to each and everything.
Right. In which case, we would. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Never mind. Go ahead. Sorry.
I heard a really interesting theodicy. That's like the purposelessness of specific things is good because it leads to things like existential philosophy, which allow people to find meaning.
That's such a cope, though.
I think so too. I think that doesn't even come close to outweighing the suffering, but it does make the most of like a bad situation, and I think that's interesting.
Fair enough. Johannes,
all right, we have Wakanda God.
Yeah, we're going to get Wakanda back
Sorry.
in here. Let me grab some super chats.
Yeah, go ahead.
Johannes, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, creation ex nihilo is Catholic doctrine. Well, kind of. I think the Orthodox have a few things to say about that. But yeah, like the idea, like the current consensus.
Wait, is Russell is still in chat?
He is,
yeah,
right?
We fucking killed him last night. He just got drowned last night, right? Like
so is he coming back to life like his savior?
The fuck beaten out of him last night. It was embarrassing. He conceded in 10 minutes. Ooh. 10 minutes. Can you believe that? He conceded open theism in 10 minutes.
Well, Russell, you're welcome to come back in for a second beating. We'd love to have you. And Educute, thank you so much for the $20 Euro chat. Says thank you. Well, thank you, Educute, for supporting the channel. We appreciate that. Big W. And Larry, thank you so much for the super chat. W666, Hail Nero, Hail Larry, Hail Satan, says keep on rocking. Well, Larry, thank you so much for the support. And Raphael C, thank you so much for the SGD2, says Prophet Justin, good morning. Well, thank you so much, Raphael, for supporting the Prophet of Doug this morning. We really appreciate that. And with that, we've got Wakanda God or Wakanda Gold. I can't read the letters from here coming up. Let me get them in the box and we'll see if the audio situation is fixed. It says God, right? With 2 Ds? I think it says Wakanda God.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, Wakanda, can you...
Does this thing work?
It seems like it's working now.
Oh, you can hear me now.
Yeah, we
I
got
can
you.
hear
We
you.
can
Oh
hear you.
my God. Okay, thank you.
Welcome back.
Okay.
So Wakanda.
Good morning. Hi. Thank you for having me on.
Good morning. Are you a believer of some kind?
I am going to be honest with you. No, I am not. I am not a theist. However, I still want to argue on the side of God existing
But
for
Why?
the sake of debate. And
but do you believe that God exists?
I'm not interested, to be honest.
Huh?
But you're an atheist, right?
Yes. Yes, I am an atheist.
Okay. Well,
I
we
don't
don't,
know.
there
I'll-
is-
we don't really.
because
I
we
mean,
don't have guests, right? So I don't know. Like I'll hear it out as long as I have like an
well,
argument.
we have one guest in the queue.
Yeah, okay.
We got John in the
Oh
queue.
wait, if
Oh,
we
we
have another
do.
guest, in the queue, then we should probably go to that guest.
Yeah, I don't want to take up time by taking things away from theists. I think I do have like an argument. I'm able to play like devil's advocate even if I don't believe in something. I know the kind of guest that you typically get on, so that's understandable. If you want to bring somebody else on before me, that's fine too. Or if you just don't want to talk to me, that's also okay.
Well-
Really, I wanted to come on because there is an argument. Well, one, I just found your show by watching Ian while I was at work on my break
Let's go.
Base.
like a few days ago. And I just did not see anybody make a certain type of argument that is common, but not really, how do I put this? It's esoteric. So it's known, but not a lot of people know of it. And so people don't
Wait, what's the
really
name of the argument?
Yes, it's the teleological argument for the
Oh, people make this argument all the time.
People
Yeah,
make it all the
it's
time.
pretty
That's just
common.
argument from design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
saying, like
Well,
the universe works well in this specific way.
Right. Like the how perfect it is, everybody.
It's
talks
literally
about-
like the biggest, like the most common argument that people make. They're like,
Right,
oh, well,
like-
but look at the trees.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, I don't want to take any more of your time. I don't really care about the history of the Bible, what's been said, or anything else like that. But when it
Base?
comes to like the difference, or at least the objective reality that we have when it comes to the world and the universe that we live in, and I can't really say this and have the confidence that it's 100% accurate. But from what I understand, the alignment between the earth, the moon, and the sun is like something that is so perfect
No.
that it cannot really exist.
No,
anywhere.
it's like super false. No.
Oh,
The-
so it's not
so there are
perfect.
good if you're deep into like the physics literature, there are fine-tuning arguments that you can run that are maybe like all right. They're okay. They're probably like the top tier arguments in my opinion, the best arguments for God's existence. But ultimately I think that they're like just all right. But this argument is like not one of those. This is like way. This
is like the banana fits in the hand.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, fair.
And I think
point.
here's my problem with all of the fine tuning arguments and or the different variants of it too, right? It presumes that the universe has a goal in mind and that the goal in mind was like human life, but that's clearly not the goal of the universe, right? So you're kind of smuggling in the idea of a God the minute you make the fine tuning argument because you're assuming that the end result of whatever the physics is must be human life. It's just a pure chance that the physics has allowed
Right.
for life.
There's actually a good Bayesian case that you can make for this, namely that on the hypothesis that the universe was made for human life, you would expect a universe that has human life in it and perhaps not much more. And we see that human life is basically 0% of the universe.
Yes.
And the rest of the universe existing is not expected on a universe that was designed for human life.
That's
so
true.
your credence should
Absolutely.
go down.
Absolutely. And that's, I guess, what could be a counter argument towards that sort of perfect design line of thinking is the Fermi paradox, right? Like, given the size of the universe and the absolute scale of it, we would have imagined that we would have found some other form of intelligent life, if not for human life. Yet, presumably, in a world that has been designed specifically for human life, we still have not found it yet. And I think that's absolutely true as well. And honestly,
We should move on.
yes,
Because we do have a
please.
theist who's waiting.
Of course. And thank you, guys. Don't want to take any more time.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on up.
Yeah, cheers. Good to hear from you. I feel bad he waited all this time and then didn't get really to have a conversation. But this
Yeah.
is for debate. This is a debate space. So we'll do what we can. So we got John with us now. How you doing, John? Well, hold on. John's not showing up. Why isn't he showing up? Did John disconnect?
It says he's still here.
Yeah, it says he's here, but he's not showing on the screen for some reason. Huh.
Jonathan? No, his name's not Jonathan. It's actually John.
This guy applying a name that he doesn't hold. How dare you? How
Did I
dare
just assume
you?
his name?
I don't think John is actually with us.
Oh, rip.
Well, that's
Rest in
unfortunate.
pepperonis.
That's
Well,
unfortunate.
Roswell's in the chat. If he wants to come up and get rocked and have his tag argument destroyed, he can. but
Yeah,
he probably
Yo,
won't.
Russell-
did you want like a Dr. Blitz? Here's like a quote, a direct quote from like 10 minutes into the debate. Is special relativity consensus?
Oh no, that's my Kandahar. For those who don't know, the Battle of Kandahar was a devastating battle in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he was very confused. He got folded on time dilation like instantly. He had nothing to say. It was bad. It was pathetic. He did lose horrifically.
What's my MOS? Quick.
Well, John came back, but they're having the same problem. So I'm not really sure if they're going to be able to actually talk. John, it shows right now that you should be on the screen. You're not on the screen. It shows right now that your video is turned off on your end, not on our end. It says that your camera is a front-facing camera. You've also got a back-facing camera. And it says that you have no audio device connected, I think. Let me see. Microphone number 1, but we can't hear anything you're saying. So something's wrong with your hardware, John. I don't know what to tell you. You might have to, I don't know. I disconnected you once and let you come back, and the problem persisted. I don't know if you're on like a computer or a phone or a tablet, but it's not really doing the thing.
Hey, if you're watching this, we currently have nobody requesting you to join. So if you want a debate, you can do it. You have
So
the
do you
power.
want me to explain that that argument that I was running by you, Ian?
Yeah.
So and I admit fully here, I was just I was. You mentioned that you had this self-referential kind of self-defeating claim about knowledge or
Truth?
God making things true, that whole business, right? So
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything in it, so I asked ChatGPT, and then eventually it just spat out an argument. So what I'm about to tell you is basically what it spat out, and I couldn't find it anywhere in the literature. So it's actually kind of cute. So and I did check that the predicate logic works.
Bro, fuck, dude. Philosophers are going to get goddamn cooked by ChatGPT.
Honestly though, like apparently it can just put together predicate logic. So essentially the argument boils down to something like this. If a precept says something like, for every sentence X, if X is true, then God grounds X, or God guarantees X, or some sort of grounding or foundation for why X is true, then essentially all you have to do is use their natural language, where they're able to say things like, they're able to quantify for all X, for all sentences X, for example. Use that natural language to try to build a statement. Try to build that statement that,
Let me write this down.
Okay.
Okay.
So the idea is to show that there exists no language, no no first order theory, first order logical theory that contains that sentence. It's just a nonsense sentence. It's paradoxical. And the way that you do this is basically by showing that there are no sentences that evaluate the truth of all propositions in a logical system. So if you want a formula to evaluate the truth of sentences in one logical system, you have to go to one higher logical system, a meta system. And so you can never evaluate the truth of a sentence like a sentence is true if and only if God guarantees the sentence in that language. And so you have to work up to a higher meta language. And then the question is are the truths in that higher meta language true because God guarantees them? If so, you have to go to a one higher meta language, and you have to keep going. You end up with an infinite regress of meta languages, none of which can contain the sentence. A sentence is true if and only if God grounds it.
Oh shit, sure. Oh, so you just like gosh, what I'm gonna say is like so much stupider than that, but it's like it's kind of like the proof where it's like, oh, okay, for any integer, there's like integer x plus 1, which is greater than a, therefore there's like no highest integer.
Yeah, it's exactly that. You
Okay,
end up
sure.
with so the derivation is basically you show that there's a liar's paradox if that sentence exists in a language, and so the only way to describe that sentence is to go to a meta language that describes that language. But then there's a liar paradox in the meta language, and then there's a liar's paradox in the meta language, and so on.
Wait, so where would be the liar's paradox? So let's do just the meta language. Where would the liar's paradox be?
Yeah, so if there's the meta language has to be able to describe the base language, so it'll have all the same properties that the base language will have, and perhaps more. And so so all you do is you run, it's called the diagonal lemma. This was proven by Gödel, I think, in the 30s. And basically the statement is that for any formula in that language, there exists some sentence in that language that says that the sentence is true if and only if the formula evaluated on the sentence is also true. So this is just saying that the sentence is true if there's a formula that takes that sentence as input and outputs true. But, and that's true for any formula. And so in particular, if there's a truth predicate in the language, which is what you need if the God sentence is true, if there's a truth predicate that evaluates the truth of a sentence, then you just make the formula that you're plugging into the diagonal lemma be the negation of the truth of the truth formula. So so all you end up saying is you say, look, you end up with a statement like S is true if and only if it is not true as determined by the language that S is true. And so the God formula actually isn't relevant here. The point is that you can never specify in a language itself a truth predicate in that language. And so if you're demanding the sentence for every proposition X is true if and only if God grounds it, then that means that the statement X is true is a truth predicate.
Fuck, I am going to have to read Tarski. God damn it. I was hoping I could just
Yeah.
skip over Tarski. This is bullshit.
Yeah, you have to read it. You have to read it. But it does actually work. It actually works, which is surprising. I'm surprised that ChatGPT was able to spit this out.
God damn. You should just go and start publishing philosophy papers.
Just steal ChatGPT?
Yeah. You'll be, it's going to be you and Otangelo.
Oh, no.
Oh, not Otangelo. Oh, no.
All right, we have John here, and we should talk to him because I know Justin only has 15 minutes.
See if John can get his audio working. John, how you doing? Because his video is working now. Also, while we're waiting for John to figure out his video, Dr. Butch, you'll be delighted to know that I misremembered the passage from Numbers on the new moon, and you're right.
It does say full moon?
No. I misremembered the order of festivals in Numbers chapter 29. The new moon festival is the first of the month, not the middle of the month. So the new
that means
how dare you?
That means
Dr. Blitz becomes the seminary graduate now.
He is.
So I have defeated you and taken your degree.
You've taken my mantle. Yes, it's all yours. I was like, Dr. Blitz, I was like, I actually have to look up the passage that was in my brain and see if I remembered it correctly, and I didn't. I'm looking at it right now. The New Moon Festival is at the beginning of the month, which was when you had the no moon going to the sliver was at the beginning of the month. So
I see.
Mark a point on the board for Dr. Blitz for sure. But John, no points. He's gone. I don't know. John, I'm sorry.
No, I still see him.
Well, I see him in the Video Ninja, but I don't see him on the screen, and his audio still doesn't work. So I don't know what's happening with your audio setup, John, but it's not doing you any favors here today.
I mean, in principle, we could end early. Like,
Yeah.
nobody would be mad.
I think we might have to.
Well, I mean, some people might be mad, but you might not be.
Are you guys streaming later today?
I am not. It's Sunday. In
fact,
fact,
maybe I'll stream. I might go live. Why not?
Hell yeah.
I might not stream. The next time I stream, it could be like June.
What? Why?
What?
It depends on how busy. So I have so my last week of work is this week. My last day is on Tuesday. Then I'm traveling with family for a few weeks, and then I have to move, and then it'll be June.
Damn, that's sad.
So I might be able to get a stream in here and there, but I don't know how frequently.
Will you be?
I'm gonna try
will
on
you-
Monday and Tuesday, but I don't know.
Will you be on Unapologetic?
That's a good question. At least not for the first 2 weeks of May, because I'll just be out of the country.
Yeah,
This fucking guy.
let's discuss offline on our scheduling for Unapologetic for the next couple months, because I think there's a lot of stuff happening in both of our schedules.
That's true.
We're gonna have to
okay.
get some.
Yeah, so why don't we end the live here then?
Yeah, we'll line up some subs. So let me grab these super chats here. Thank you so much, Adele, for the $5 super chat. Adele says, just a heads up, I think we missed a whole series of hilarious super chats about Marcus. I know Marcus he was a Christian that sent a series of super chats, crashing out in the super chats, paying us money to crash out. It's not too often that you get to make a Christian crash out while they're paying you, which I think is my favorite form of the Christian crash out. So big W for Marcus. And Raphael, thank you so much again.
Financial domination and rhetorical domination.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Raphael says, are you guys open to the idea of God existing, but we just haven't found proof or evidence yet? So I am open to some kind of a God existing, but I have no reason to believe in that God until I see like an evidence for the God.
Sure, yeah.
But again, I don't know.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm saying I don't know what problem a God would solve. What problem exists that a God needs to be there to solve?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like so we're automatically going to be more justified in believing that one doesn't exist, just on the grounds that like if we can explain everything without a God, then Occam's razor dictates that we should.
Right. I'm with you. And I think that's our last super chat. So guys, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate all the likes and shares and support. And I'll be live tonight on AXP. And if you didn't see Ian's live stream on Friday night on Truth Wanted, it's up on YouTube now. You can see Ian, and Ian's going to be up on the AXP main show with me. Is it next week already?
Yeah, I'm excited. Looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Hell yeah. I'm working on getting the rest of the TikTok crew onto the AXP main show. I'm trying to get Blitz and Peterson on there next, but they schedule it so far in advance. It takes a while to get everything happening. But anyways, May 5th, Ian and I are going to be hosting the Atheist Experience at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you're there for that. And I'll be there tonight. So guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you again soon.